Let's rock and roll. Let's rock and roll. And I just got to admit, that song, that intro song pumps me up, gets me in the mood no matter what's going on, no matter what I'm feeling like before the show starts. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the chat about the intro song there. But appreciate you joining us. Thank you. We got a hell of a show for you today. Today being Tuesday, the 18th of August, 2026. My name is Brian. This is the Blunt Politics Podcast, and I do appreciate you for joining me. Once again, taking the time out of your day, hitting the three buttons that are so crucial, so vital to this show's existence, which are the like and the subscribe and the alert bell. If you could do all three of those, all free to do, doesn't cost you a dime, not a single red cent does it cost you to click out of that chat right now. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this stream, and hit that notification bell so you know when I go live. It also gets us through the old algorithm monsters that don't typically like the independent channels like this, that don't typically feed money and ad revenue into the old YouTube coffers. Obviously, the subjects and topics that we talk about aren't typically boosted up in the algorithm either. So it's with your help, support, generosity, sharing the show out and stuff like that we can fight through the old algorithm monster. But like I said, ton to talk about today, ton to get into. What do you say we bring in the chat? Say hi to everybody before we get into all the nonsense, craziness, and ridiculousness that we got to cover today. What's happening, chatskis? What's up, guys? How are you? What's up, Jackie? I see you over there. We are live indeed on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, Substack, and Kick. We're trying to cover all the goddamn bases. So regardless of what platform you're watching on, if you could hit that like button, the thumbs up, subscribe, follow, whatever it may be on that platform, it would be a great help and go a great deal in helping this channel continue. So what's going on, Frank? How are you, Chris? What's going on, Bob Thanos? Great to see you. I see you in there, Ian. Jupiter Judy, what's going on? Minnie Mouse, how the hell are you? Brian M., how the hell are you? Vasantha, what's going on down there? Yakov, and to the rest of the mods, big salute to you guys. Thank you for fighting through all the nonsense in the chat, keeping that a safe place down there. But we got a lot to talk about today. Frisky! What's up, Frisky? Shout out to you. W in the chat for Frisk. What's happening? What's up, Gamer? Tina, good to see everybody. Aliosha on there, Twitch. Appreciate everything you do for this channel as well, my brother. A lot of topics today that I'm going to be throwing at you. We're obviously going to be talking about Donald Trump throwing South Korea under the bus once again, while at the same time simultaneously praising his relationship with Kim Jong Un. This simultaneously as he's again threatening one of our allies, this time Oman, one of our oldest and most critical allies in the region. We have a story here where the U.S. is seemingly blaming Israel for strikes within Syria over the last, I believe, 24, 48 hours, if I'm not mistaken. But, Israel's firing back, basically saying that the information, the intel was sent over to the United States. And it seemingly what they're saying, what I'm saying, kind of reading between the lines, is that it happened with the United States approval. So we got that to talk about. We'll be diving into the diesel and jet fuel crisis and problems that we've been seeing now as it relates to the war with Iran, the Strait of Hormuz being closed. We talked a little bit about this last night in the Zoom meetup. Shout out to the Patreons last night that joined us for the Zoom chat. You too can join along in the Zoom chats if you'd sign up for any one of the three levels over there on patreon.com. You can join us every Monday. Typically, we get together and shoot the shit for a couple hours and talk weather and politics if you want, talk about pets, whatever the hell. Just a better way to kind of put a face behind the screen name that you guys typically see in the chat, and obviously a great way to contribute consistently to this platform. So we'll be digging into that. There's obviously some more Lego videos coming after Donnie the Liar once again. I think I don't know if it's a Persia boy or an explosive, but we'll take a look at that one as well. We got some more of the hardcore MAGA turning on Donald Trump. We have, I believe, Owen Schroyer, who kind of went on a little tirade, a little rant against Donald Trump. He, if you'll remember, would be the Alex Jones acolyte who kind of had that falling out with Alex Jones. You'll probably recognize him when you see him, but it's a short clip I want to go through, but right along the lines of, the Tucker Carlsons, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, and, other prominent MAGA cultists that have somehow seen the light now in Donald Trump's second term where they didn't see it before. And then we obviously have some newly released footage that we showed last night on the Zoom where it shows Trump and Natalie Hopp. It's from a couple years ago, so I'm sure things have progressed and changed to a certain extent, but it gives a good behind-the-scenes look at how they concoct their Truth Social lies. This was basically in response to Kamala Harris accepting the nomination to become president. So in 2024, But like I said, I don't think that, Donald Trump, a dog that old is going to change his tricks too much. Natalie Hart being in the picture still, so it gives, I believe, a good insight, a good look as to how the Truth Social lies in the nonsense that he puts on Truth Social, and the lies that are concocted by his inner circle and people in his administration. How that happens, because he's surrounded by people like Matt Gaetz, Jason Miller, Stephen Miller, a bunch of these degenerates and famous morons from this Trump administration, and they're all kind of brainstorming these True Social posts and things that they can say in response to what Kamala Harris was saying live during her speech, during her acceptance speech there. But all right, let's get into it here. We're going to start off with a little bit from Fox and Sean Hannity, because they're really ramping up their Red Scare propaganda. They're really talking about now how the midterms, it's going to be the end of the world and it's the end of the country as we know it. So what do you say I throw this on the screen real quick? Thank you, chat, for everything that you guys do. Thank you to anybody gifting already. Much appreciated. There's several different ways in which you can gift to this platform and, just support this platform, an independent creator like myself, where we don't have any outside backers, financial resources to pull from, any dark money fundings coming into this show. We don't show ads or commercials or anything during the podcast. Nothing is hidden behind a paywall. We don't charge for the Substack. It's definitely not the best business venture or the best plan to go through as far as financial viability is concerned. But, I do believe it gives us the ability to continue to speak about these very important and a lot of the times polarizing issues, and give our true opinions, give you guys our true feelings. And I do believe today we're going to need the swear jar, if you know what I mean. So I don't know if JD's in the house. I don't know if we got any swear jarians in the house that typically recognize when, YouTube doesn't like the old spicy language, and they try to combat that by sending in a buck or two through the chat. But I do believe with, Donald Trump, again, praising Kim Jong Un when Kim Jong Un is responsible for sending thousands and thousands of troops to Ukraine, weapons, ammunition, and everything to help Russia kill Ukrainians, both civilian and military. We'll get into that. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but the swear jar is going to come into play today, I can assure you. But let's start off here with Fox News and Sean Hannity. And this is just a quick glimpse, only about 42 seconds, but this will give you a good taste of the Red Scare, the communist term, the socialist term are being thrown around. I wish I had $1 for every time Fox News said socialist or communist. I'd never have to do a live stream again, right? I'd continue to do it. I just wouldn't have to rely upon live streams for my daily earnings, right? For to keep food on the table and keep the lights on and shit. That would be all taken care of, because every time that Sean Hannity or fucking Jesse Waters or any other dickhead on Fox News decided to come out and say communists and socialists and Marxists and all the other ists that they come out with, I'd be well paid. But this is him basically telling his viewers that the world's going to end, if they don't get out of their seats on midterms and vote against these socialist Democrats, heathens, devilish people, that the country as they know it is going to end, right? So I just want to play the first couple seconds of his little Red Scare clip here, and it should give you, like I said, a clear indication as to what the rest of Fox News sounds like, even if you don't watch it, consume it, or see anybody that's covering it. But yeah, check this quick clip out.
The country would be unrecognizable.
Hold on. I don't think I caught it from the beginning. Let me start it from the beginning.
The country would be unrecognizable. If you, as an American voter, if you don't take this seriously in 78 days, the America that you grew up in, it will cease to exist. Telling you, most important midterm in your life. Everything's on the line.
So again, the Red Scare, the McCarthyisms, the country's going to be over as you know it. Everything's going to change. It's going to be this Joseph Stalin Red Army country that nobody ever wanted and that we fought against. And we're like, he's pulling out all the stops, as is basically everybody else on any of these right-wing propaganda outlets, RSBN, OAN, Fox News. I mean, the list goes on as far as these outlets are concerned. Newsmax, they're all over it. Newsmax is flooded with, videos about Abdul al-Sayed, videos about Zoran Mandani, videos about Hassan Piker, videos about the DSA. They're doing everything they possibly can to make it seem like, it is the red wave. And I don't mean like Republicans. I mean like Russian, Soviet, USSR red wave type of thing that they're trying to scare their viewers with as it pertains to, Democratic policies, Democratic voters, and what's obviously and clearly been seen to be very popular with voters recently in these Democratic elections, obviously in the primaries and in the special elections that we've seen in recent months too. But I just wanted to, like I said, show you a little bit of Sean Hannity and Fox News and their little Red Scare nonsense that they're going through. He goes on here to, try to, again, put the DSA up on a soapbox to make sure that he's doing his best to scare his audience. Right?
Socialists get their way, they will eliminate the Senate, no longer allow you.
Again, Sean, you fucking click that pen one more fucking time and we're going to have issues. We're going to have fucking issues. Can you guys hear him clicking that pen in the background? He's so nervous, right? He knows that it's so important for him to try to get this gaslighting propaganda bullshit across properly to try to scare people. Like, I don't watch a ton of Sean Hannity, so maybe it's something that he does every night when he can't have his vape. And again, not one to be talking, but the video that everybody's seen where Hannity gets caught with the vape in his mouth and he has to throw it down like nobody saw him. He looks like a little kid with a parrot just walked in the bedroom, busting him with the weed stash, But anyway, it's listen to him in the background with the pen. All right, listen.
Everything's on the line. If the socialists get their way, they will eliminate the Senate.
Like, Jesus Christ. Like, if Sean Hannity wasn't fucking bad enough to watch, like if that block-headed moron wasn't fucking bad enough to stare at on your television screen, you got the clicking in the background of him doing that 1,000 times a second because he's so goddamn nervous, right? And again, and disagree or agree with all of, any of, some of, a couple of the things from the DSA platform. We could probably spend a great deal of time kind of breaking that down. And, basically in short, I believe it is going starting off the strongest as far as a negotiation, right? We're obviously, there are things on there that aren't going to be workable, things that are, kind of dreams to have, but are clearly not obtainable the way that the system is set up right now. Clearly changing the system is a big approach to things right now. But it just, you have to understand what's feasible, not feasible, things that you can get or can't get. But obviously when you're starting off a negotiation, you want to start high, knowing that the other side of the other side of the negotiations are going to try to knock you down to a certain extent. And basically, ultimately, when you end up in the conclusion, the finalities of the agreements, it's hopefully somewhere in the middle and still moving the platform or the policies in the direction a great deal like we want to see happen. But he's continuing to do his Red Scare bullshit using in the IST, Marxist, socialist, communist bullshit to scare everybody. But let me throw this on in the background because we're going to be talking about this lump of shit here. Unfortunately, I'm just going to continue to let this loop in the background without sound. You don't have to hear it. You don't have to listen to it. But this is the guy here that we're going to be discussing. The same guy that continues to, if he's not threatening an ally, just directly throwing them under the bus so that he can, again, praise a relationship with a dictator, an autocrat, somebody that is right now directly assisting our enemies in their fight to help kill our other allies. So this fat motherfucking lard-ass piece of shit that you're seeing on your screen right now, the guy that, again, claims to have rebuilt the military, and look at where we are militarily, right? We got sailors, soldiers, and airmen trying to jump off of fucking aircraft carriers, right? We're out of Tomahawks and Attackums. We're fucking about as short as we've ever been on THAADs and Patriot interceptor missiles. Our allies and bases in the Gulf region have been pounded to shit. They're low on their interceptors. They're worried about what the fuck's going to happen if this Iran war, ever kicks back off or decides to kick back off, which it's probably more likely to do than we're ever going to get to an agreement, judging by some of the comments, about 7 to 10 hours ago from Galabaf. And then we have a CNN and a Fox News clip kind of going over, some of that back and forth as well. But a guy that we know it's bullshit for him to claim that he rebuilt the military. Like now seeing what he's trying to do with his new fucking golden fleet of battleships and how out of date, like those things have been irrelevant since before the end of World War II. A lot of people, would suggest and probably say that even into the beginnings of and probably even before World War II, you could see it was on the horizon that ships like that were going to become obsolete because of the advent of the aircraft and being able to, drop bombs from airplanes. It's just the whole fucking thing is just asinine and ridiculous. But when this fat ass diaper baby goes out there and says that, and is right now commander-in-chief of our armed forces, claims to have rebuilt them. And then we look at the state of our military right now, like our military in conjunction with Israel, some of what is supposed to be two of the most capable fighting forces on the planet, still to this point haven't been able to militarily defeat Iran or to bring them to their knees, force them to the negotiating table. Still to this day, Ghalibaf and Iran asking for the same goddamn things, right? The lifting of the sanctions, being able to sell their oil, giving back all their frozen funds. I mean, the list continues, and it's been pretty much the same and consistent every single time that they've put forth their ask, their demands, as far as what they want from the United States. So let's go on here, and we'll see what he's putting on Truth Social. And we'll show you how he's throwing our allies once again under the bus because they won't help us in a fight that we don't need their help with, right? So he's still asking allies around the world to join us in this really fucking victorious fight against Iran. We don't need your help. We don't need your help, but I'm going to ask you for it. And if you say you don't want to get involved, we're going to punish you. And then I'm going to praise the hostile enemy to your north that is also a hostile enemy to our country here in the United States, shoots off fucking rockets and missiles twice a goddamn day to show his capabilities. Again, sent some, 50,000 or so soldiers to Russia to help them in their fight against Ukraine. Sent, God knows how many missiles and other pieces of equipment and weaponry to Russia to help them kill Ukrainian civilians, help them kill the Ukrainian servicemen and women that they've killed so far. Like, this is, again, the president of the United States, the commander-in-chief, that is actively praising his relationship with Kim Jong Un, an autocratic, dictatorial, scumbag, genocidal murderer that continues to help our enemies. I just want to continue to paint the picture here. Let's get the context right. Helping our enemies being Russia, right, to send them troops and weapons to kill Ukrainians, to kill military servicemen and women and civilians alike. And Donald Trump's again out there praising them and removing and basically limiting our participation in these military exercises, which, in fact, their whole entire purpose is to project our power and strength to Kim Jong Un, to make it known to him, if he were ever to fucking kick things off, what he could expect, what he's expecting to face, right? What he's likely to face. So to limit our participation in this sends a clear and direct signal to Kim Jong Un, not only about the willingness of Donald Trump, but also the relationship between Donald Trump and the allies of the United States. So reading this out, it says, and this was posted the 16th, 5:04 p.m., right? So he says, based on my very good relationship with Kim Jong Un of North Korea, I am not happy with the fact that the United States has long ago agreed to participate in joint military exercises with South Korea. These exercises are not only costly, with much of these costs paid for by the United States of America, as usual, in quotations with an exclamation point, but send a signal that is totally inappropriate and hostile to a country that, as long as Donald J. Trump has been president, has been unthreatening and respectful. You dog shit motherfucker piece of shit. I'm running out of swears and terms and phrases for this piece of trash. Again, for the president of the United States to come out and say that they've been unthreatening and respectful when we know for a goddamn fucking fact that we are the direct enemies of that country, right? Our allies are also direct enemies of that country, and that they are directly assisting our enemies in killing our allies. That's unthreatening and respectful? That's what you'd call that? Like the ways in which that he's degrading our relationship with allies all over this planet, while at the same time trying to prop up his own personal relationship with autocrats, dictators, genocidal fucking murderous freaks all over this planet it never ceases to amaze me, right? It's one thing that remains to persist throughout his career, is this love and affinity and respect for the worst of the the worst as far as autocrats, dignitaries, heads of state, anybody that leads a country with an iron fist. Donald Trump loves and admires and respects the shit out of them automatically. Again, just the insanity and the delusion of the president of the United States calling Kim Jong Un in North Korea unthreatening and respectful is just, it's beyond the pale, right? He says, therefore, and based on the fact that it is too late to cancel, I have instructed Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to substantially reduce the joint military exercises and then he goes on to say, while somewhat unrelated, which what he means is the whole entire fucking reason that I'm doing this is because he recently asked the president of South Korea if he would like to join the United States in the denuclearization of the Islamic Republic. He just cannot get the fucking name of this country right. As many times as he gets the opportunity to try it, he just continues to get it wrong. We get it right, though. We'll read that again for Donald Trump because his mind is so gone, he always gets the name of the country wrong. So he says, to a country that, as long as Donald Trump's been president, has been unthreatening and respectful. Get that fucking through your skulls. Therefore, based on the fact that it is too late to cancel, I have instructed Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to substantially reduce the joint military exercises. And then, again, while somewhat unrelated, question mark in parentheses for some reason, I recently asked the president of South Korea if they would like to join us in the denuclearization, right, of the Islamic Republic of Japan. Yes, that one. And they said, no, thanks. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So at the end of that is the entire reason that he's now basically, he knows he can't cancel. He knows he can't cancel. You can't help me with anything. So what he did is he just limited the participation. He cut it down as much as he possibly could to send a signal to South Korea that he was pissed off that they weren't going to, again, send their men, equipment, manpower, funds and everything else to help Donald Trump fight in this illegal, destabilizing, incredibly fucking ridiculous war that he started in conjunction with Benjamin Netanyahu. So that's the entire reason for this. So that's why he's more than willing to talk about his very good relationship with Kim Jong Un, right? Based on my very good relationship with Kim Jong Un. Then he goes on to, one more time, just to beat it into everybody's head, call Kim Jong Un in North Korea unthreatening and respectful. I mean, just, I don't know, demonic shit here from the president of the United States and what is supposed to be the commander-in-chief of our armed forces, clearly on a war path here as far as our allies. Like I said, if he's not basically throwing, an entire country under the bus, long-standing allies of the United States, he's just directly threatening allies of the United States with continued bombing and missiles, even if they've helped us through a situation, even if they have been kind of long-term and very important allies in the Middle East. We'll go on to talk about how he threatened Oman once again with, saying he would bomb the shit out of them. Let's take a look at a couple of these clips here that I wanted to dive into. There was one from this press conference in the Oval Office where he's talking about the Strait of Hormuz again, talking about how he likes the idea of having total control. Again, this shows you the delusion. At the same time that Iran has again sent over their wish list of demands, which includes hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars in return, the lifting of sanctions, complete control with Oman over the Strait of Hormuz, being able to, if they want, charge tolls and fees, saying that Russia and Chinese ships won't have to pay a toll, like all of these things as far as the wish list and demands. At the same time that was happening, you have Donald Trump in his delusional state of mind in the Oval Office. Once again, even after his own White House had to walk back his statements the other day from his speech, where he first said that the Strait of Hormuz was going to become United States territory, his own White House had to walk that back and say he was kidding and yada, yada, yada. We even heard Benny Johnson, refer to that in his video. But Donald Trump apparently didn't get the memo from his own White House about how he was supposed to be just kidding about this. So he was asked apparently about this situation, and this was his response in this White House, press account here, press briefing. This is also the same one where he went after the CNN anchor, basically one stop, one fucking 1 inch short from calling her piggy. Basically he's telling her we'll watch the clip, but here's the first one where he's talking about the Strait of Hormuz and the idea of it becoming a U.S. territory. Again, showing the delusional state that this guy is in right now.
Last week you said that you would soon declare the Strait of Hormuz to be a territory of the United States. Could you elaborate?
Well, I just think it's a great idea. Yeah, I mean, we control it. We control it with the blockade. We have a blockade. We control it with the blockade. And I like the idea of declaring it a territory.
Why might you do that?
We have total control over the strait. Now, they can be a nuisance. They can put a mine in the water, and people don't like having mines hit their beach.
Now, remember this. Remember this statement here, right? Tuck that away a little bit for later on in the show when we'll discuss how he contradicts himself 100% as far as where he just said they can be a nuisance still, which is what we've talked about. That's all they have to be. When this asymmetric warfare that Donald Trump, this game of asymmetric war that Donald Trump has opened up like a can of worms, that's really all Iran has to be, is a nuisance to the shipping companies, to the insurance companies, right, to the captains, to these billion-dollar vessels that are carrying this really, valuable cargo through the Strait of Hormuz. They really don't have to be the overwhelming military force, overwhelming military power in the area. They just have to be able to shoot up a drone, shoot up a missile, lay a mine or two in the strait, and take out a couple of these ships. And that's obviously going to have, downhill impacts on the other ships not wanting to risk it going through, much like we've seen. And the embarrassment of talking about ownership and control of something which has been drastically reduced well beyond the point where it was before this war started. Like, I don't think he understands that whole aspect of what he's trying to say. We own it, but we don't own it enough where we could open it up fully to even the point where it was before we started this incredibly destabilizing war, right? So we're still fighting the effects of the war and instead of, again, trying to obtain the goals that Donald Trump had changed 15 or 20 different times, which were originally stated as far as the reasons behind this war. Still trying to talk about denuclearization, which again contradicts the reports that says behind the scenes Donald Trump's ready to get out of this any way he possibly can, including not coming to a resolution or a conclusion with the denuclearization deal. Anything to do with Iran giving up their nuclear dust, as he calls it.
$1 billion ships, etc. But the blockade has been very effective, and we're taking out. Now, maybe that will stop, or maybe it'll open up even further, but we're taking out millions of barrels of oil a week. If you look at the
And this is another talking point that him and his administration have continued to try to put out there now, and we've continued to see experts and people looking at traffic going through the Strait of Hormuz and the number of ships, and it's oftentimes been in single digits. We've seen a few times where it's in double digits, but nowhere near the 130, 40, or 50 ships that were going through daily before the war started. So, we've seen continued, spikes in the price of gas somewhere. What are we now? Somewhere in the region of $4.10, $4.11, somewhere in that vicinity. We'll talk about later in the show diesel and jet fuel and how that's become a huge problem and remains a huge problem. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve, right? I mean, it was months ago where Donald Trump, out of his own fat orange crusted lips, told you that if you really wanted to see death and destruction, we could continue this war. Remember when he stopped there was a ceasefire for a certain period, and he came out and admitted that if the war were to continue, that the economy had the opportunity, it was likely to go over that cliff's edge as far as the strategic reserve, and obviously the downhill effects, the downhill impacts of that. Trump said it out of his own fucking mouth. So, I mean, that was months ago, and we've seen, no progress. We've seen no benefit. We've seen no alleviation of the stress on the markets or the economy. We've seen the oil companies, the oil conglomerates, and the CEOs kind of play ball to a large extent with Donald Trump based upon his lies and his bullshit about a deal being right around the corner. It's going to be today. No, it's going to be tomorrow. And, these oil companies are so desperate to have this actually be over that they're doing everything they possibly can to kind of, make Donald Trump look good. Ultimately not have the price of a barrel of oil go to 150 or 200 like a lot of people suspected it could and still might, based upon what happens with the Bab el-Mandeb, what continues to happen with the Strait of Hormuz, if this decides to, escalate, or if it ultimately comes to some sort of agreement between Iran, U.S., and the United States. We also have Which is funny because this is exactly what we've been talking about for a couple weeks now, or at least a week, where the Iranians and the Omanis have been talking and discussing and going back and forth with their control and ownership over the strait, and the United States has been having to piggyback on those discussions and try to make it seem like those discussions, are more involved the United States than they really do. Well, I think in a couple of the posts that I have here, one of the videos, it basically says that the United States was removed from these, and I do believe it's even Fox News telling its own viewers that it was literally just the Iranians and the Omanis, and that it basically excluded the United States from these talks. So how the United States, Donald Trump, and anybody else could be piggybacking on these discussions, like we saw Benny Johnson try to do, like, oh, finally, Donald Trump has made this happen. It's over. Discussions are progressing. We've seen recent clips from Jared Kushner, trying to perpetuate the same type of bullshit where everything's great. We had great talks. He was speaking more on the Hamas front, but still, didn't say anything about the United States, didn't mention the United States, but did mention Israel a shitload of times. But you can see how they're continue to try to push out there that, a hope is a deal is right around the corner, right? This is going to be done any day now. We get the best people on it. We're having the greatest talks. Meanwhile, the other side, Iran and Oman, are like, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Like, they weren't even involved in the talks. Never mind, were they a huge part? And should this be, in any way, attributed to a victory to their side? But all right, there was another one of these two. There was a longer clip from this that I wanted to take a look at. Again, this is the same. Fuck, I don't know why it resets and goes back to the top every time like that. Well, all right, so you don't have to watch me scroll through this whole thing. I'll make it a little bigger on your screen. But I'm just going to scroll back to where I was in that part. But yeah, this is the same White House, Oval Office press gaggle core interview bullshit, where Donald Trump attacked the CNN anchor. And there was also, I think, a little bit more where he's questioned on the state of the U.S. servicemen and women. I think more directly the USS Abraham Lincoln. So I just want to show his response to that as well. Yeah, I think it was right here. Sorry, for some reason, every time you watch something and then you go back to where you thought you were, it just resets and it brings you to the top of the page. But all right, let's see here. I'll throw this on your screen, make this a little bigger for you guys. Pause it real quick. Play it at the beginning. And this is just a longer clip here. I don't know if we'll make it through the entire thing, but you can see at the end of this, I believe, Donald Trump, lash out at the CNN reporter, the CNN anchor that was asking him the questions. And then he says a lot more of, ridiculous shit before that. So just want to see if we can call out a little bit of this nonsense. And then what do we got after this? We got, we got a CNN clip here talking about Trump threatening to bomb the shit of Oman. And then we have a Fox clip talking about recent Israeli strikes in Syria and obviously the degradation of the talks between the United States, Iran, and Oman. So we'll get to that in just a second, but I just want to play this, see how much of this we can get through and call out. Oh, if I was a great presenter, I would say please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. My name's Boston Brian. This is the Blunt Politics Podcast. A multitude of different ways in which you could support this channel. There's a Venmo just up in the corner. All we ask for is $1 or $2. If you think we're deserving of more than that, not going to stand in your way, but $1 or $2 from anybody that's in the financial position to give that in the chat would do a great deal at making sure that this show can persist, make sure that the lights stay on, the microphone continues to work, and we have a computer to continue to stream from. So that would be fantastic. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Thank you to the mods, first and foremost, for making that chat a safe place and making sure that we can do this on a daily basis. All right, let's get back into this.
Why hasn't Kim Jong Un responded to your request to have a conversation?
How do you know he hasn't responded?
Has he?
Yeah, he has.
Did you speak to him?
So again, that's where Donald Trump decides to take a second to say, am I going to lie directly out of my ass and whether or not I've had a conversation with Kim Jong Un, or if I just decided to be, his puppet once more and shit on South Korea. Again, this is on top of, and let me see if I can get rid of a couple of these ones. Because remember, wasn't it Trump that took U.S. South Korea missiles? Let's see if this brings it up. Trump orders a major cut to U.S. South Korea drills, but there was also where he had to steal some of their missile systems, their defense systems, right, from nearer towards the North Korean border, if I'm not mistaken, because of how low our stockpiles were, the limits on our stockpiles. see here. It's going to be hard to find because of all the recent news of the, what Trump's saying here about these recent exercises. But I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, they went back and they had to kind of pull some of the Patriot defense systems from South Korea. And I'm sure other areas of the world as well where we had them stationed because of the necessity, because of the limitations on the stockpiles that we've seen and how much they've had to expend in this war with Iran and, with our Gulf partners and Gulf allies and stuff like that as well. But yeah, if you can look that up, I'm sure. Let me know in the chat if I'm getting that one mistaken or if you think I have that one right. All right, let's get back to this.
Where are you in conversation?
And very positive. Well, just so you understand with South Korea, look, South Korea has been protected by us for many, many years. And during my first term, they agreed to pay close to $3 billion a year for protection because we don't, they essentially weren't paying. And I asked them to do that at my request. I said, not right. They weren't happy about it, but they agreed. I asked for $10 billion and they were very unhappy. But we agreed for a short term that it would be $3 billion, and next year it would go up, and the next year it would go up. So they start paying for their protection. When the election was rigged, and I ended up watching for 4 years and then coming back, I watched Biden rescind that $3 billion a year for whatever reason.
So he said that. I heard that originally, and I'm like, what $3 billion did Biden rescind? So, like the normal-brained human being that I am, I was like, well, why didn't I look that up, see if I could either confirm, corroborate, or deny anything that he's saying as far as the rescinding of this $3 billion that allegedly, South Korea said that they were willing to pay every year. And this is what I came up with. This is what, showed up in the old search engine. It says, Donald Trump claimed that President Joe Biden rescinded a $3 billion a year troop funding deal with South Korea, but fact checkers and public records show this claim is entirely false. I was like, okay, makes sense as to why it didn't ring a bell right off the bat. In a recent Oval Office briefing, Trump asserted that his administration secured a short-term agreement for South Korea to pay $3 billion annually for U.S. military protection, which Biden then allegedly canceled. Fact-checking agencies confirmed that no such $3 billion agreement ever existed, and therefore Biden could have never rescinded it. So it didn't take very long. It says what Trump actually claimed goes on to, in further detail, talk about it during an August 26th press briefing, which we just watched. He claimed about the $3 billion and, as it pertains to the joint exercises, this is the $3 billion deal, he said. And then it just goes on to basically say how he's a moron. And that never happened. So, if anybody else was right along with me and being like, well, that doesn't ring a bell. That doesn't really make much sense. What's he talking about? Just another one of Donald Trump's lies. I mean, who knows what number we're up to here in the second term, right? I kind of, as much as it was kind of irrelevant, it did show a lot about the administration itself as to like the counter that was going on in the first term and how many lies he told. The final count, somewhere over 30,000 or so. And that was just, provable ones, not the ones that were just completely made out of thin air that are just, impossible to disprove, which is, he's famous for as well. But in this second term, I would likely double that, right, already. And I know we still have a lot of time to go, but I'm thinking somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 to 100,000 lies told specifically by Donald Trump at this point. Who knows if somebody's keeping a running tally and they'll come out with this at some point in time, but, maybe you guys are in the chat. Let me know if you in the chat here have a running tally of the 100 or 200 or 300 or 400, maybe even a million lies that Donald Trump's told here already in his second term. I'm going to fast forward just a bit. Like I said, I won't subject you to this whole 5 minutes and 35 seconds. It's kind of towards the end where he goes after the CNN anchor. So let's see if we can get into that portion, and then we'll go into a little bit more of his, mental threatening of bombing Oman. And I don't mean the mental threatening as just kind of threatening mentally. I mean just like how mental it is to threaten Oman with missiles and bombs as an ally of the United States. Again, a long-standing and very important ally in that region. But let's see here what he says.
I'm making it much safer.
Yeah.
See, I'm actually making it much safer. Kim Jong Un has always treated me with great respect. And
by killing your allies, by killing the people that we forced to give up their nuclear stockpile in response, in an agreement with our fucking promise that we would come to their aid if, again, this exact fucking situation were ever to arise. And now you're sitting there calling the guy sending the troops to Russia, sending the missiles to Russia so that Russia could send them into Ukraine and kill their population, kill their military, kill their civilians on a nightly fucking basis. Talking about how great of a guy this is, right? Are you fucking joking me? Like, is this a joke? Is this what MAGA considers patriotic? Is this what's supposed to be, a patriotic display from the president of the United States? Is this what makes fucking maggots proud to wave the American flag? Is this why they continue to support, our greatest liability in Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu's fucking, maniacal plot as well? Like, this is just fucking disgusting on so many different levels and shows this guy to be an absolute pussy-ass bitch, just licking the boots, like getting face first in the taint of every autocrat and dictator he could fucking find on this planet. And they don't even give him half the time respect in return, right? He doesn't even fucking get anything from this. He's just born that way, where he's got so much of an affinity towards people that, can rule with an iron thumb, that have no problem killing at will and can say fucking, and command an entire country. Like, that's why he's so enamored with, Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, right? I mean, the list goes on as far as people that have a stronghold over their country and their people, the political parties, the political systems, elections in their country, much like Donald Trump would love to have, right? And as far as he's gone to try to establish that power in this country, he would love to have it go a lot fucking further. Like, he wants his generals, like he said before, to act like Hitler's generals and to not question anything and any of the war crimes and any of the illegal orders that are given to him. Right? That's like, he wants to be able to, throw any brown and black person out of this country, deport them, send them to a country they're not familiar with at will. He doesn't want the opposite political party, the opposition, as far as political parties are concerned, to have any say in what he can and can't do during his administration. Like, he wants that fucking that I don't even know, that all-enveloping power of being the Vladimir Putin, of being the Xi Jinping of China. He just can't help himself. The Kim Jong Uns of North Korea, right? The way that they rule, over their country. The way that they kind of hold back food and, the people worship them and wash the pictures and, have to cry outrageously when something happens, like we've seen time and time again. Going to be no different when this dickhead finally takes his last breath either, right? When his fucking old and beaten ticker finally stops ticking, they're going to be the same scenes of these maggots and cultists all over this country, lining up on the streets, weeping like the North Koreans do when one of their great and dear leaders kicks the bucket.
We met on numerous occasions, actually, 2 primary occasions, spoken and spent time. I understand him. He understands me. You're doing war games. I get along with him. He didn't like Biden. He didn't like Obama.
Yes, and again, the war games are to project power, right? To, again, establish to Kim Jong Un and North Korea that, yes, not only are we still closely aligned, closely affiliated, and closely partnered with South Korea, or if you're looking at it from the other angle, from the South Korean angle, with the United States, and this is what you can expect if you decide to take one of those fucking missile drills that you shoot off almost on a nightly basis, and target that at Seoul or target that at any other United States ally in the region, wherever it may be. Like, this is what you're expecting to face, and we're going to be ready for it. We're wargaming it out. We have people in manpower and everything else and equipment in position, and we have an understanding of the what's going on, the powers at play, and we're going to be able to respond quickly to this. Like, that's what these war games send. So it's the message that the war games send, and he's again trampling all over that message and sending the opposite message to Kim Jong Un, which is the lack of partnership, how quickly that will pull our support because South Korea doesn't want to get involved in Donald Trump's illegal war against Iran that is going absolutely nowhere, that has clearly been non-beneficial for every party involved, both Israel and the United States.
Didn't like anybody.
So again, I'm gonna dive on for the sake of time here to the end of it, where I think he's going after the let me see here. Been out there, you report fakes. Yeah, this is where he's going after the CNN reporter here. You can do it. All you got to do is play. One button. Come on now. Come on now. You can do it. I know you're a shitty site. I know you're run by an absolute degenerate moron and Elon Musk, but you can do it. All you got to do is play. One time. One time. Don't make me hit you with the refresh. Come on. Why? Why? I don't understand it. Such a terrible fucking platform this is. All right, it's going to make me do it. Actually, is that a sign? Is that a signal? No, because this is what a lot of people are talking about this moment, so we gotta play it. Let me hit him with the refresh. We're at 423. Everybody remember that, 423. Crying out loud. Appreciate you for sticking with me. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell as I try to find where we just left off, because computers in the internet and the deep state just don't want to cooperate. You know what it is? You know, the more I try, the harder it becomes. But no, it's somewhere in this general vicinity. Sorry to be scrolling so fast through your screen. My apologies. But like I said, it's not too far down here. I think it was, yeah, this one.
Why hasn't?
So make this bigger on your screen. What did I say? 423, I believe. 423. I think it was somewhere in this general vicinity. 423, and we'll go from here.
It's quiet.
Oh, there you go. Oh, I almost missed it a little bit. So rewind just a touch, and then we'll go here where this is where Donald Trump attacks the CNN journalist here.
Two primary occasions, spoken and spent time. I understand him. He understands me. You're doing war games. I get along with him. You know, he didn't like Biden. He didn't like Obama. He didn't like anybody. But I get along with him very well. No, what I'm doing is making things safer. Just the opposite. Quiet. You're very disrespectful in front of this young man.
So again, one step away from throwing in Piggy, right? Just one fucking step away from throwing in Piggy once again, telling, hey, quiet, Piggy, quiet.
Okay. Don't you find her disrespectful? He understands. Quiet. Who are you with?
And again, for anybody that hasn't seen this clip, he's talking to a child that's next to him. A fucking child. Don't you find her disrespectful? He asked the child on the fucking couch. Why? Again, in the year of our Lord 2026, children are still allowed to be within, I don't know, 43 miles of fucking Donald Trump or anybody in this White House is beyond me. But apparently there's still moronic parents out there that are just more than happy, more than willing to throw their fucking children in with a bunch of pedophile, baby-eating, fucking maniacal psychopaths like Donald Trump and his best friends that he's surrounded with here at the White House. You know, I digress as far as that's concerned, but that's who Donald Trump was just referring to and talking to as far as how disrespectful this CNN journalist was being, was the child next to him in this, what you look at, this golden spattering of bullshit on your screen.
Fake news. You're fake news. You're a loud, boisterous person. You're fake news. Be quiet. Be quiet. Be quiet. You're a fake reporter, and you report fake news. Go ahead.
Mr. President.
And again, to her credit, she doesn't give up. She persists in trying to ask the question. It's difficult to hear. I think to a large extent they probably cut the sound to whatever extent they try to pick up the sound of the journalist there. But she tries to persist. She tries to continue the question. But he's clearly not in the mood to continue to answer that there. You can see once again the disrespect he shows women, the disrespect he shows journalists in general, and, you know, just how ridiculous it is for him to sit there in front of children and ask their opinion on how disrespectful a regular question, very normal question, legitimate question asked by the CNN anchor. And this even was taken a step further by the, the White House Response 47 account on Twitter, because they decided to attack the journalist's children or bring her children into this, saying that, they were going to be disgusted when they grew up and look back at her, ridiculous comments. And, they went on to try to bash her and her children, which was, again, picked up by a lot of other journalists and called out rightly for the ridiculous post that it was, and how insane it is to try to include a journalist's children in this whole mix for asking what is looked at by a lot of people, everybody, almost as a very legitimate question that she posed there to Donald Trump. But Let me see here. This even continues. The craziness continues because not only is Donald Trump throwing allies under the bus and praising our dictatorial enemies as those enemies are actively engaged in killing our allies in the assistance, the help in the fight of killing our allies, sending direct boots on the ground to Russia to be engaged, to be thrust into the fight against Ukraine. That's North Korea. That of sending over more recently missiles to help be sent into Ukrainian cities to help kill Ukrainian civilians and, any military that they inevitably do hit once out of every 200 fucking missile and drone strikes that they put up here. But he's now threatening, once again, like we saw just the other day, Oman with bombing the shit out of them. So this was a quick CNN clip here giving us an update on some of Donald Trump's comments, and I think a little bit more from the Strait of Hormuz, if I'm not mistaken. So I just want to go through just a little bit of this clip, and then next we'll take a look at how Fox News is reporting this, and then also kind of Israel's, I don't even know what you call, delinquency, basically how they've gone rogue now. They no longer need the United States. They're no longer seeking the approval or need the approval of the United States to engage in any strikes, to further their war against the Iranian regime, or to continue their war in Lebanon, to continue their war in genocide in Gaza, to continue their war crimes in the West Bank as well, which we've detailed over the months here on Blunt Politics. But let's get into more specifically here. Donald Trump's threats to Oman, again, a United States ally, longstanding and very important as far as the Middle East is concerned, ally in Oman. Donald Trump threatening to bomb the shit out of them if they, paraphrasing, basically get in the way of what's supposed to be the outcome of the war with Iran and ultimately the Strait of Hormuz. And this is, we'll talk about, and I do believe it's referenced on the Fox News clip, not so much the CNN clip, about the way in which the United States has basically been removed from these discussions and how that goes directly against all of the right-wing propagandists that were trying to piggyback on the Iranian-Omani discussions about, their control and ownership over the strait and saying this was the ultimate conclusion and this was brought upon by Donald Trump and these were the ultimate negotiations that everybody was talking about. And then Iran this morning says, well, you can take that fucking sentiment and stick it straight up your tailpipe. We're still asking for all of this. So again, let's get into this Wolf Blitz of CNN talking about Trump bombing the shit out of Oman.
A new threat for President Trump as a window formally closes in the war with Iran. Today marks the end of the Memorandum of Understanding, as it's called, and its 60-day deadline.
Yeah, you guys remember that. The Memorandum of Understanding that was never, ever a thing, never gonna be a thing. Yeah, that somehow ended yesterday, in case you're wondering. The thing that was never a thing, that was never in place to begin with, it ended yesterday. That's just in case you weren't following the reporting.
Peace talks between the U.S. and Iran. This morning, there are no plans in sight to end the war, and while it's not clear what happens next, President
I forgot
Trump
to show you this, so that's probably a good little segue. We'll get back into that real quick, but let me show you. We'll go back into Donald Trump's Truth Social, and this is what he posted, I believe either late last night or early this morning, which should show everybody just how close we are to a deal and, the sentiment that Donald Trump has behind this and what the likely outcome will be. Now, hold on. All right, now you're not working. Come on, Truth. None of the degenerate websites run by these degenerates seem to work. Isn't that weird? It's funny how that happens. All right, let me throw this back on your screen. How's that happening? All right, let's go back. We're going to do it all over. We'll go back here, share screen. When things ain't happening, you got to do them yourself, ladies and gentlemen. When things ain't happening, you got to do them yourself. So let's see if that works. At the stage, throw that back on there. All right, let's see here. It was a more recent tweet, so it couldn't have been that long ago. April, I signed here. Yeah, here it goes right here. So this was Trump, 9:30, 18th. So yeah, 9:30 this morning. There are no talks or conversations going on or scheduled with the Islam. He keeps fucking the guy just. How many times, as the president of the United States, you have to continue to get the name of a country wrong? It is this
Islamic Republic of Japan.
I told you that 1,000 fucking times. So he says that the naval blockade remains in full force in effect. The Hormuz Strait is open and operating. Again, embarrassing to claim, as we can see the traffic going through the Strait of Hormuz. All water mines have been removed or detonated. Now, that's funny. Remember how earlier in the show I told you to kind of throw it in your brain bucket where Donald Trump said that, yes, Iran can be I think he said a deterrence? What was the word that he used? I forget the exact word that he used, but they could be like they could be a little bit of a problem, almost like a mosquito or a gnat. They could, every once in a while throw a mine or a drone or a missile into the Strait of Hormuz and, be kind of a nuisance. I think he said the word he used was nuisance or something along those lines. But now, in his Truth Social post, is claiming that every single one of the mines has been taken up. The blockade's going swimmingly. Iran can't do shit about shit. And again, just totally contradicts everything that he said, just 24 hours prior to this. So, yeah, this is his post from 9:30 this morning, where the Benny Johnsons and everybody else are talking and hopeful about a peace deal. They were even, like I said, trying to piggyback on the Iran-Omani talks. This is kind of shooting down all of their propaganda. So they can't even, and this is happening for a long time now, where the administration and the propagandists haven't been lined up. This goes a lot towards like the mental decline of Donald Trump, his inability to have that iron grip over the cult, to be able to persuade them into believing or not believing a subject or a topic or a news story or something like that. Like, he hasn't had that. They haven't had that. And we've talked about this on Blunt Politics, where like the MAGA propagandists have been out of sync and fighting with each other. Like, the cracks that have formed in the MAGA base first formed with the propagandists. Wasn't so much the normies, wasn't so much the Donald Trump acolytes and the cult followers, the general population, so to speak, but it was within the MAGA propagandist cult, like the prominent people, the Tim Pools, Candace Owens, the Benny Johnsons, and they were going back and forth with the Tucker Carlsons and the Laura Loomers. Like, that's where it kind of first originated. So they were never focused solely on the propaganda that got them to where they were. So they're most effective, these propagandists and these right-wing hacks and losers and people that are out there gaslighting the shit out of their viewers. They were most effective when they're spewing kind of the same bullshit, the same rhetoric, and going after and lying about Democrats and Democratic politicians and Democratic policies. Like, that's when they're in lockstep, right? That's when they're at their most effective, not when they're fighting each other, because they spent a shitload of time and continue to do so, worried about each other. The Candace Owens debate with, what's that asshole's name? Andrew Wilson, if I'm not mistaken, who got his, credit where credit is due to an absolute degenerate piece of shit like Candace Owens, at least as it pertained to the topics that they were discussing in this debate. She wiped the fucking floor with this guy, which, again, doesn't seem like it'd be too difficult because he seems like an absolute schmuck bag, but still, it's that kind of infighting where Patrick Bet-David is hosting debates between, these prominent right-wing hacks, basically, and they're spending time doing that leading up to midterms and not attacking Democratic politicians, right? Not lying and coming up with, ridiculous talking points about, Democratic policies. Not saying that's not happening. Obviously, you got the Fox News and the Sean Hannitys and everybody else, with the Red Scare and talking about Abdul Sayed and Zohran Mamdani and, the rest of it, the communist, Marxist, all of that socialist bullshit. That's going on, but it's not the entire conglomerate. Right. And I think that's when the MAGA propaganda is at its most effective. Right. That's when it has the ability to sway a certain percentage of the population to actually make a difference. That's when and they just haven't been doing that. So, they kind of been going back and forth, and Donald Trump continues to, completely defy anything that these propagandists have been saying, right? You can go one day and see what they're saying, and the next day it's right there, kind of been debunked by Trump himself, and he said the complete and total opposite. Let's see if we can dive back into this CNN clip and see what else they got from the Strait of Hormuz here. Play.
Is lashing out, and one very unlikely target is Oman, a key U.S. ally in the Middle East and a broker in trying to seek a deal with Iran to try to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. This morning, the president tells Fox News, and I'm quoting the president right now, listen to this: "If Oman gets in the way, we'll bomb the shit out of them." Those are
That doesn't sound like the alcoholic drunk piece of shit at the end of the bar that tries to fight every single person that comes into his space, in the local bar that he's known to hang at every single night, Monday through fucking Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and twice on Sundays. This is that like maniacal, totally lost control over his faculties, totally not with it as far as what's happening with reality, sees himself as a Stalin, Hitler type, Putin type, where, the military is now his just personal weapon. The military is just his Gestapo, SA, SS-like force where he can send it around and project his tiny dick energy all around the world. And, any place he wants to go and try to suck up their oil, he can utilize and expose the U.S. military to the dangers so that Donald Trump doesn't have to face them, right? Or now where he's too weak and cowardly to admit that this was an incredibly destructive, destabilizing, and useless fucking war in which the United States perpetrated war crimes, killed many civilians, lost 18 servicemen and women to this point, was responsible for hundreds and hundreds of injuries, a lot of which were severe injuries that are long lasting, injuries that people are going to have to deal with for the rest of their fucking lives on a daily basis, because they were used as a weapon, used as a political pawn by Donald Trump, again, to project his tiny dick energy, wherever he sees it fit.
His words. He also downplays the urgency of a deal as war-weary Americans deal with high gas and oil prices. And his quote, once again, "I have no time schedule. I'm not in a hurry," end quote.
So again, that's right up there with, and I'm paraphrasing once again, where he said he doesn't really think about the financial, problems that the Americans are facing. The rise in the price of gas and the price of oil, and how that's kind of filtered down into a lot of different aspects of daily life. Like, he doesn't worry about that. He doesn't care. So that kind of soundbite, and there's been others, very much along those lines, where he basically just says, "Fuck everybody. I don't care. I'm doing this whether you guys like it or not. I'm doing this whether it hurts you or not," type of thing. While I have no time schedule, I'm not in a hurry. While millions and millions and millions of people all over this planet, not just here in the United States, are suffering at the behest of Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu because of this war. Countries that, totally rely upon the Strait of Hormuz for their goods or their oil. Obviously, here in the United States, and the impacts that we continue to feel with the price at the gas pump, groceries, and like I said, how it filters down. And we talked about it last night. Dame Dog brought up in the chat. Shout out to Dame, how the fact is that the United States and trucking and shipping in general runs on diesel. Like, your vehicle might run on gasoline, but the trucks and the ships and everything else typically runs on diesel. So when we see the exorbitant price of diesel, that's going to be affected. That's going to be relayed down to the price that you pay for whatever that good is being transported using that device. So again, whether it's a ship or a plane or a train, automobile, whatever the fuck it may be. And then obviously the jet fuel impact as well, as far as the aviation industry is concerned.
CNN's Betsy Klein is over at the White House for us. Betsy, what are you learning this morning?
Well, Wolf, back when the U.S. and Iran had reached that memorandum of understanding to stop the fighting, and it would kickstart a 60-day period for technical discussions on some of the thornier nuclear issues. That 60-day deadline has officially expired as of today. So where are we? This deal is effectively in shambles. The Strait of Hormuz, traffic there in that critical oil thoroughfare, is essentially at relative standstill. And the president—
Whoa. Trump said it was wide open. I'm not sure. You better check your facts again. I don't know. I mean, I know every graph and kind of shot of the Strait of Hormuz that we could look at kind of says the same thing, that it's been severely degraded and that any traffic going through is very, very minimal and is not likely to have any benefit or impact whatsoever on the United States' market in particular. But yeah, so again, you must have your facts wrong, because Trump says we're in total and complete control over that strait. The United States is it's actually under so much of our ownership that it's now going to be a U.S. territory. Okay, so I'm not sure. He even posted, I think, hold on. Yeah, I got something. Did you guys see this? That was posted by the White House. Was it this one? Yeah, here it is right here. You see this? This is posted by the White House account on Twitter. Anything that Donald Trump says, they immediately have to try to make it into a meme to kind of will it into existence, will it into reality. This was kind of like what we saw with the Gulf of America, the Gulf of Mexico bullshit that we saw. So as soon as Donald Trump says it, even though the White House had to walk it back, they have to appease him by at least making a meme. Okay, so they might walk it back as far as talking to outlets and the newspapers and saying, yeah, don't listen to him. He's a fucking idiot. He was just joking. It's one of his, it's one of his dumbass old jokes that he was telling. But they also, on the same hand, or with the other hand, have to create this meme to appease Donald Trump so he could post this on his Truth Social website and, in some ways, like I said, try to will this into existence. But new U.S. territory, in case you're just listening, we're looking at a meme posted from the White House account on Twitter, but ultimately coming from Donald Trump's Truth Social account of a depiction of the area between Oman and Iran and the Strait of Hormuz, with the Gulf of Oman on one side, the Persian Gulf on the other, with a big circle directly going around the Strait of Hormuz with the big thing that says new U.S. territory. And then Strait of Hormuz there on the bottom. So kind of, like I said, trying to appease the dictator, having to make him sound like or feel like this is anyway a reality or a possibility. I mean, does anybody really understand how much that would cost us to try to do? Like, if we really tried to make that a territory, you think Iran would just be like, okay, like, we're going to throw up our hands now. We'll lay down our weapons. Oh, you want to make it a U.S. territory? Oh, why didn't you just say so? Well, that's a horse of a different color. I don't think that's how it's going to go. I think they're still going to have a big problem. I think they're still going to have military capabilities to try to say something, about that whole thing, whether or not that's going to be a U.S. territory or not. So what's going to have to happen is these U.S. ships that are, not going through this area, which is why we've seen the problems that we've seen with the supply on a lot of these Navy vessels, because a lot of the ports that they would actually go to get their R&R or to get their, supplies or resupply for the ship, they are no longer being able to get to. So Iran has successfully, without striking any of the aircraft carriers or Navy vessels, to my knowledge, in the area directly, they have been able to successfully cut the supply chains enough to force the USS Abraham Lincoln out of action, right? So the calculations that were done by the IRGC, by the Iranians when kind of building this military atmosphere or infrastructure to combat the West, and more specifically the United States, with their $1 million, $5 million, $10 million missiles that we have to send up, with very cheaply made drones where you can produce them in large quantities. It doesn't take a whole lot of parts or added cost onto it. Even the more effective or more technologically advanced weaponry that they have, munitions that they have, are a lot cheaper than the munitions that are used on the opposite side by the United States or Israel, using the United States weaponry. So they've done a great job at being able to strike these ports, or at least cut off access to these ports and hit the bases in the region, to successfully cut off the supply to these billion-dollar fucking crafts, right? Billion-dollar aircraft carriers, and I'm using that obviously on the low end of what these things cost, but to have an effect, to have an impact large enough to force them out of action. Again, whether it's because they didn't have the food to sustain the soldiers, because they didn't have the tools or the resupply or, the parts to replace or fix any of the plumbing, the toilets, the showers, or anything like that, the washing machines, the laundry, the fires that they've seen, the ability to, again, repair the damages. If you don't have that stuff readily available, you obviously need to go to port and find all of those things. If you can't get the port, you can't get those things, you can't inevitably fix whatever problems you're facing out on the open ocean. So it's kind of this asymmetric warfare again, right? It's that very consistent theme that we've seen of asymmetric warfare. You don't necessarily have to have the military prowess or capabilities to strike or sink United States aircraft carrier or a destroyer in the area, or any one of the vessels that are protecting the aircraft carriers. You don't need that. You just need to be able to cut off these bases, hit the bases so that they can't get through the Strait of Hormuz, close the Strait of Hormuz. Next thing you know, they are limited as far as the time that they can spend on scene, and that it's going to force the United States to take a carrier out of the Pacific. now making that area more vulnerable to whatever bad actors, nefarious actors were kind of kept at bay because of the United States power projection, the United States Navy's presence in that area. So now it's obviously setting up other situations where you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, but obviously somebody has to get into Paul's area and make sure that things are staying safe there as well. So let's get back to the CNN clip here, see if there was anything else that we needed to go through in this one. And then if not, we can jump into this Fox News where they're talking about the similar aspects of Donald Trump talking about bombing the shit of Oman. And then a little bit more from the recent Israeli strikes inside of Syria and the spin that both the Israelis and the United States are trying to put on that. Basically, the United States has come out and tried to blame the United States and say that it was an escalatory move, basically not sanctioned by the United States, if you're reading between the lines. But the Israeli reports coming out of this, and you'll hear Trey Yingst say this in just a couple minutes, is that the information and the intel was absolutely passed along to the United States and shared with the United States. So they either had, tacit or complicit permission given, or it was very explicit permission that was given. So let's see if we can jump back into, like I said, anything else out of the CNN one, and then we'll hop into that Fox News clip. My name's Boston Brian. This is the Blunt Politics Podcast, the little political podcast that just keeps trucking along. We are an independent channel. We do not have any financial backers, any corporate sponsors. We do not run ads during the live stream or the podcast. We have nothing hidden behind a paywall. We do not charge for the Substack. Every way that we could possibly remain independent, we've done so. It is a very shit method. It's a very shit way to try to build a business. I assure you, don't try to do it if that's, if you're in this for financial gain, not the route, the method you want to take. But if you want to remain kind of true to your values, true to your opinions, not have anybody outside be able to sway or change or twist what you can talk about, the topics that you cover, I think this is the best way to do so. At some point, we may have to rethink. Maybe there's a couple of good companies that may like to sponsor us that we may have no problem with and are, responsible for no human rights violations. But like I said, we'll talk about that and we'll come to that bridge, when we have to cross it. But right now, if you guys here in the chat could, again, show a little bit of generosity, show a little bit of support. I know a lot of people out there absolutely do, time and time again, and thank you so much for it. But if anybody else, if you're just joining us for the first time, if you find some value in the show, if you like what you're hearing, if you like what you're seeing, if you like the welcoming and hilarious chat and community and family that we've built here, think about subscribing, liking, and hitting that notification bell. That's all free to do so. And then the next step, if you're in the financial, spot to do so, there's a Venmo up in the left-hand corner. I believe your right-hand corner. I'm probably getting that mixed up. It's somewhere up in the corners. If you want to just click on that with the camera, send you right to the Venmo. Send $1 or $2. Buy me a Powerade. Whatever you can do to support the channel would be greatly appreciated. So again, appreciate you for joining us on this in this little venture here to try to call out these propagandists, any bullshit, the lies, the gaslighting from mostly the Republican Party, Donald Trump in particular in this administration, but any of the mainstream media that we need to call out here. So jumping back into the CNN, and then we'll get into the Fox News clip after this.
President now issuing this new warning to a key U.S. ally, Oman, that has served as an intermediary in these talks between Iran and the U.S., particularly on the topic of control of the Strait of Hormuz. He says, quote, if Oman gets in the way, we'll bomb the shit out of them. Again, the president's words there. And this appears to be an escalation with one of the U.S.'s most important allies.
Yeah, it seems to be a fucking nut job that belongs in a home in a straitjacket talking about bombing an ally that's, again, been engaged in the conversations, been engaged in whatever negotiations have been ongoing. Again, a long-standing and very important and critical ally in the region, especially considering what's been enacted. Again, the destabilizing nature of this war for the Middle East in general. Like, it's going to be very important to continue to have whatever allies, and again, bad or good, and things that you could talk about as far as, a lot of these different, what we call allies in the region. That's obviously another debate and another conversation. But these are clear rantings of a lunatic, an absolute fucking madman that should be nowhere near the hands of power, the wheels of power, anything even remotely closely associated with the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the United States of fucking America. Like, come on. How many times are we going to go through this where he has to threaten an entire country, where he has to threaten an entire fucking population of people? How many times he has to threaten a direct ally or trade partner of the United States? Like, when is it going to fucking finally click? And I know I asked that question, and there's almost really no answer to give, because the people that are still supportive of this, it's never going to click for. I know we, to a certain extent, and we'll see here, Owen Schroyer in just a few minutes, kind of it clicks for some people. A lot of it is money based, and the mighty dollar has a big impact on that. They kind of see the turning of the tide. We've talked about this, and the popularity that once swayed with the younger generation in colleges, where it was popular to get out there and do the double jerk off dance on TikTok wearing the Trump costume and the red hat. Well, we've seen a very clear and concise shift in people that are willing to get out in public and say they voted for Donald Trump or support Donald Trump. Right? It's not the wide cult, the wide cult coming out and acknowledging what they've been made to believe and everything that they've followed, but definitely a lot of people on the outskirts, kind of on the peripherals, right, if you will, now kind of being like, okay, this is a step too far. Obviously, I was supportive of this other bullshit, but whether it's the Epstein situation, whether it's the war with Iran, whether it's the lies that they were told about the economy here in the second term, like something has clicked for at least some of these idiots and morons and people that were wrapped up in the propaganda and the gaslighting of Donald Trump and the MAGA cult
in this region. The president also appeared to undercut top officials, including Vice President J.D. Vance and the press secretary Caroline Leavitt, who in recent days have suggested that getting oil prices back on track, the price of gas...
Hold on. She mentioned Caroline. We can't forget. Every time Caroline's mentioned, you got to play her.
Caroline, she's the reason for the word bitch.
All right, sorry. Had to get that out. It's the law. It's the law. If you don't do it, the deep state will come after you. So I'm only obliging. That's all. My apologies.
Is just as much of a priority for President Trump as ending this conflict and preventing Iran from having a nuclear weapon. The president posting this to social media earlier today. He says, quote, "The number one goal is and always will be that Iran cannot have in any way, shape, or form a nuclear weapon."
And again, so basically completely dismiss all the reporting that we've seen from people inside Donald Trump's administration, say that he's now actively talking more and more about, the willingness to get out of this war without seeing any resolution or a finalization to the denuclearization project or topic, or not getting back any of the nuclear dust. So again, the discrepancy in what he says out loud and in public and what actually goes on behind the scenes. Like, there's no stockpile problems if you're listening to Donald Trump in public, right? If he's being asked by a reporter. But if you want to go back into Camp David and listen to how he's talking and speaking with Pete Hegseth and how they're at each other's throats because, one lied to the other hand job didn't work. And when, Pete Hegseth was down on his knees in front of Donald Trump, he promised things that ultimately didn't come true, whatever they were fighting about. A lot of it was about the stockpiles. A lot of it was about how long this war had lasted. And again, how they promised that none of this would happen as far as the retaliation from Iran. So let's see here. We'll go into this next one by Fox. I just want to see how they're reporting on this. And there's a little more from this one from Trey Yingst. Trey Yingst is like the Fox, the Fox News version of Barack Ravid from Axios. Like, he's got the direct line, and if Donald Trump wants to push propaganda, get some gaslighting out there, or lie to the American people, he's more likely to call Trey Yingst here on Fox News or Barack Ravid over there on Axios. But this has a little bit more. They talk a little bit about Trump's statements about Oman, and then they give a little bit about the recent strikes from Israel into Syria and some of the back and forth between the United States. Seems like the United States, as you can see here by the headline from Fox, it says U.S. blames Israel for overnight strikes in Syria. But Israel claps back, as you'll hear reported from Trey Yingst, and says, no, we gave all the info and intel to the United States, and apparently this was done with the permission of the United States, and they're just trying to kind of play it off cool and disassociate themselves from any accountability as far as these strikes are concerned. Or, on the flip side, this is Israel starting to act, again, as a rogue terrorist nation, as they are, right? This is them finally cutting off any culpability or any joint action with the United States and any say that the United States has over what they can and cannot bomb, whether or not they can or cannot go deeper into Lebanon, whether or not they can or cannot continue to perpetuate the genocide in Gaza or their illegal push into the West Bank, which we've covered a ton here. But yeah, let's see what they're covering and how they're covering it here on Fox News. Again, not good information, not good things happening. So I'm curious how they spin this one to their audience.
Warning to Oman, threatening to bomb the U.S.
And this is going on, I remind you, as ships are being still hit in the Strait of Hormuz. The Houthis are still bombing, Yemenis targets all over the place and throwing missiles into different areas and threatening the Bab el-Mandeb and Red Sea. Like, this is all going on at the same time. So they're really, really, just a couple days ago, we're really happy to try to piggyback off of the talks between Iran and Oman, and that's kind of led to the president of the United States threatening to bomb the shit out of Oman. As it, just that's the typical progression now in the old geopolitical foreign affairs, policy aspect of the Trump administration. But let's see what else they got.
Ally, if it gets in the way of efforts to reach a deal with Iran and reopening the Strait of Hormuz, because they've been dealing with each other and cut us out.
Meanwhile,
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? That's the important part as I throw my pen. That's the important part that I wanted you to hear. We really don't have to go through too much of this, but listen to Brian Kilmeade and what he says right here.
Because they've been dealing with each other and cut us out.
Meanwhile.
So they've been dealing with each other. What I've been saying here, what have I been pointing out and stressing on this podcast for, I'll give myself conservatively for the last week, right? Is all of the reports that are coming out that are talking about the negotiations between, and say it with me, Iran and Oman did not include or say in any way anything about the United States having their delegation there or being heavily favored or included into these discussions. Why would they? Why would they be? The discussions were literally, hey, you charge 7%, I'll charge 3%. They were literally divvying up control over the Strait of Hormuz. So for the United States to be as desperate as they were, and the propagandists and gaslighters for this administration to be as desperate as they still are, to come out of this with some resolution, with some victory that they could fucking cheerlead to their base, that they were going to piggyback on the two countries, Oman and Iran being the direct enemy, the direct opposition, the people that we went to war with in the first place, divvying up control of an international waterway that was freely being traversed before this war started. And the United States and these idiots were so desperate to get the fuck out of this that's the deal that they wanted to piggyback on. But as you just heard from Brian Kilmeade, it was discussions between Iran and Oman, and the United States was cut the fuck out, as I've been saying and reporting here for at least the last week. One more time.
Opening the Strait of Hormuz, because they've been dealing with each other and cut us out.
Meanwhile, new strikes in Syria overnight have the region on edge.
Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst joins us live from Tel Aviv with the new details. Good morning, Trey.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. Reports indicate Israel launched strikes against a Syrian airbase overnight, prompting U.S. Ambassador Tom Barrack to release a statement saying we are deeply concerned. He went on to say an unnecessary escalation that does not advance regional stability. Now,
so again, a U.S. asset, a U.S. representative there coming out and saying they're deeply disturbed, and this was an escalatory event by Israel. But as you'll hear now, I believe Trey Yates goes on to report that the Israelis have come out since and said that no, the United States was made well aware of this. They were given the intelligence, and they either failed to say don't do it, or they again just gave their expressed permission for this to happen.
I spoke with a senior Israeli official about these reports, and they responded saying highly sensitive intelligence was shared with the United States and advanced at the most senior levels of the various agencies and bodies. This official went on to say al-Shara understands that he cannot operate like the previous Syrian regime, which maintained proxy forces. It's possible he didn't understand what was going on or didn't know. They could not provide any additional details due to the classified nature of this intelligence.
You can do it. I know you're a shit site too. but you can do it. There you go.
But this comes as we are tracking the latest developments between Iran and the United States. The memorandum of understanding expiring yesterday with no diplomatic solution on the horizon.
It never fucking started. I'm so sick of hearing that it ended yesterday. It was never a fucking thing to begin with. It was a pipe dream from the fucking onset, right? It was a figment of your imagination. It was reporting from fucking Donald Trump's asshole that was propagated by Barack Ravid and you, this moron, Trey Yingst here. And somebody, oh, yep, this is a thing. Never was going to be a thing. Never was a thing. It wasn't a thing up until yesterday. Nobody gives a fuck. No negotiations are happening, as you just heard, posted by Donald Trump. Ships are still being struck, as I believe he goes on to talk about here, right? Houthis and proxies are still activated. The Strait of Hormuz still closed. Gas prices still up over $4 a gallon, right? Instability in the oil market. We'll talk about in just a minute how it's affecting diesel and jet fuel prices as well. So all of that going on, but it's smooth sailing if you're listening to Donald Trump. He's in no rush. Doesn't care how much pressure you're under. Doesn't matter how much the expenses for you and running your family have gone up. God forbid you're on a fixed income, like I'm sure some of the people in the chat are right now, are on disability or Social Security or whatever it may be, right? And this has added exponentially to your costs, and you didn't have those costs to expend, right? You only had pennies to pinch at the end of the month if you were fucking lucky to begin with, the way that prices were increasing. And then ever since the added increase of cost, added increase of prices, it's put you, way behind the 8 ball. You're, again, robbing Peter to pay Paul to make sure that the lights stay on this month. Maybe you can do without a phone, right? Or next month you can do without the lights and you'll need the phone. Or next month you can do without the cable and you'll need the lights. Or the internet. Believe me, I understand. I'm right fucking there with you. I wish I could explain in more detail my current situation, but I'm afraid nobody had listened to me. I'm afraid there'd be nobody else left in the chat. But like I continue to say, don't get into political commentary and start a podcast about politics and do it independently if you're trying to make it rich, right? If you're looking for Lamborghinis and Ferraris, don't follow my business plan, I can assure you. But all right, this is where he goes on, I believe, to talk about how there was even further strikes as far as ships inside of the Strait of Hormuz here.
Early this morning, another vessel was struck in the Strait of Hormuz by an unknown projectile. While Iran and Oman do continue talks about the strait, the U.S. naval blockade remains in place, and President Trump has warned Oman against getting in the way as he pursues a better deal.
They want to make a deal, but they're not going to make the kind of a deal that...
Right, so that's Donald Trump there and a couple of the clips that we already played earlier for you, so no need to subject you to more of that. But that was just a little bit of the reporting from Fox News, talking about the maniacal statements, the genocidal statements, once again from the President of the United States, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, about attacking, killing innocent people, and bombing the shit out of one of our allies in Oman, because he's frustrated with the lack of progress and the lack of victory he can show in the Strait of Hormuz. But let me show this because this was interesting. Let me know what you guys think about this as well, because I'm a little bit skeptical, and take this with a grain of salt as to whether or not it's real. I have a little bit of trouble believing that the United States military, the United States Navy, the United States Naval Air Force would be likely to have this type of writing on their aircraft. It's tough to tell from this picture where it's actually taken, if it's on a ship, if it's not on a ship. You can see a wire up top, whether or not that's actually attached to the aircraft. But if this is in fact what it is kind of reported to be, and this is being written by the troops on on deployment here in the Middle East, you can see here kind of the sentiment being shown. And like I said, right hand up accountability, cannot confirm in any way, shape, or form that this is in actuality real or confirmed to be on an aircraft carrier or any way affiliated with the United States in the Middle East. But let's see here. It says BB Cucks. It says Operation Epstein Fury here. Peace deal number 64 incoming. This all for the Holy Land. Basically another reference to fighting for Israel. It says, I love Israel. I am a good goy. Just above my head here. That's that one. One says, I love flock cameras. Something about spaghetti. Somebody sucks wieners and balls here. You can see on the left-hand side. But yeah, this was being reported, and this is put out, I believe, on the Hormuz letter. Yeah, it says U.S. servicemen in the Persian Gulf have scribbled messages on the dust of an aircraft flap, per an image from the field sent to Trita Parsi. The message include "Be a good goy and do what Israel tells you." Operation Epstein Fury, peace deal number 64 incoming. All this for the Holy Land. Love Israel. I am a good goyim. BB sucks. Says that a U.S. serviceman adds, what people in the media don't understand when they compare past conflicts to this one is the operation has no morale behind it. That makes a world of difference to service members deployed to undesirable locations indefinitely. So, again, if true, if this is in actuality an aircraft on one of the one of the many vessels in the area, or bases in the area even, you can definitely tell here that the people get what's going on. Like, they understand kind of what they're being used as and who this fight is really for, which is our greatest liability. Israel, to be frank, that genocidal terroristic state that they are. I would point you towards the latest statements by Itamar Ben-Gvir, where he's calling for, again, the executions and the assassinations of some 30, 40, or 50 Palestinians per day, whether or not they pose a threat or not. I mean, again, these same genocidal beliefs expressed by many within the Israeli government, which, again, only leads you to one answer. If you have a brain, which is they are absolutely, in totality, a genocidal, terroristic country right now. And need to be treated as such. All aid and weapons coming from this country to that country need to be cut off immediately, and they need to be prosecuted. Every single one of their leaders that has been responsible for a death, been responsible for a war crime, been responsible for an illegal policy put in place, needs to be brought to account, needs to face justice and accountability, and we need to send a fucking message with them the same way that we send a message with the Trump administration and the people within that have been responsible for the war crimes and the illegal acts, corruption, fraud, rape, pillaging, and plundering of the American people in this second term. So the Nuremberg-style trials should be held for all parties involved in this matter. But let's see here. What do you guys think? I'm curious what you guys think, because I know we have a lot of people within the military that have served either past or present. So I'm curious, do you guys think, I mean, is this something that would be allowed to fly? I have a tough time believing that would, with the officers involved and, obviously all of the maintenance and everything that surrounds these type of deployments and aircraft, that it would be very difficult for this to be. I mean, I know they write on the bombs, right? I think that's different when you can write a message on the bomb and write a message on the missile, right? But what do you guys think in the chat? Let me know what you guys think. I'm kind of curious. I know you're a little lagging behind, and sometimes this is a failed mission to ask you guys a question because of how far you're lagging. But do you think this is something that could possibly be true? I wish somebody could catapult Putin into that. I'm with you, Kerosene. I'm with you, Kara. I'm with you. But let me know. I know it takes a second for you guys to catch up, but let me know if you've served or have spent any time in and around the military. If you think that is, a possibility and something that can be, put into the zeitgeist as plausible, as it were. But all right, let's dive into a little bit of the ongoing effects from the Strait of Hormuz, taking a look at some of the diesel prices and the effects to diesel. Again, shout out to all of the Patreon members that showed up last night to our little Monday night Patreon meetup that we typically have. Again, just a great way to kind of shoot the shit, spend a little bit more of time getting to notice and recognize and getting to know the people behind these screen names in the chat that you see so often. But this is Iran closes Strait of Hormuz as diesel prices surge to $5.46 a gallon across the United States. And once again, I reiterate the great point made last night by Dame, which kind of recognizes how much the transportation and supply relies on diesel in particular to, again, get the goods across the country, get the goods across the fucking waters and shit like that. Like, this is having a huge impact, and accompany this and put this on top of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve The low levels that we've seen on that, even the dangers that were thrown out there, recognized by Donald Trump a couple months ago at how close we were to economic disaster. Remember, he said something along the lines, if you wanted to see devastation and destruction, if you thought we were seeing that in this war with all the bombing and the missiles, like just wait until the Strategic Petroleum Reserve goes bust and the economy really falls over a cliff. Like that was something spoken about by Donald Trump a few months ago. So we haven't seen any benefit, haven't seen any change so far since he said that. So one could only suspect that we are, even if we're not in the same position, we're in a worse position as far as that's concerned. So it says a ship was struck by a projectile Tuesday while sailing out of the Strait of Hormuz, and Iran continues to restrict one of the world's most critical trade routes and energy price climbs. Let me see here. I think I had Galabaf, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, let me throw this on your screen before I jump into this and the price of diesel real quick, because this will give you, again, an indication as to where we lie on this. And, are the Iranians, are they willing to capitulate? Are we near a deal? So this is just a real quick clip. This is put out probably about 10 or so hours ago at this point. And this was simultaneously as Donald Trump's talking about control and ownership over the strait and how it's going to be a United States territory. You have this coming from Galabaf here. So let's play this. I believe it's translated on this, if I'm not mistaken. So I'll go through it. Play. All right, so I'll put the sound on. So he says, today, based on conditions set by the Supreme Leader of the Revolution, I'll turn it down because there's probably no sense in that going on in the background. He says, by employing the logic of power, using power logic, and coordinating the diplomatic field and the military field, we are working to force the accused of America to pay Iran's national rights to fruition. And let me be clear, as long as America does not fulfill its commitments in the agreement, including lifting the siege, freeing frozen assets, lifting the oil embargo, ending threats and military operations on all fronts, and other conditions that America has committed to in the agreement are implemented, the Strait of Hormuz will not be opened. However, I must stress that the opportunity gained from the agreement in the lifting, the siege, and the ceasefire is a great opportunity to boost Iran's economic resilience and restore its defensive power, and Islamic Republic of Iran is ready to respond to the enemy's actions and deliver a heavier defeat than before to anyone who imposes it. So again, not showing any signs of backing down, doesn't show any change of their demands, right? Pretty consistent as far as the demands, pretty consistent as far as their power projection. And we brought this up too last night during the Zoom. Both sides in this fight have, they're both delusional, right? I've said this before on the show. They're both delusional. Iran is definitely feeling economic pressure, but they're just more willing, ready, and able to subject their population and themselves to this economic instability, economic pressure, destruction of infrastructure, whatever it may be, a lot longer than Donald Trump has the ability to subject the United States or the greater Western powers to the economic pressures that have come from this war in the first place, right? So again, that asymmetric warfare that we continue to talk about. They don't need to be able to defeat us militarily. They just need to be able to outlast us. They need to be able to not care about inflation, how much their economy is being degraded, because of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, the lack of their ability to sell what they were selling beforehand, import and exports wise. It's definitely having an impact and an effect. It's just not to the extent and not having the impact and effect that the United States and Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth and Benjamin Netanyahu thought it was going to have. Completely discounted the willingness for this, again, newly hardlined regime. So again, a regime that, under the assassinated Ayatollah is known to be more hardlined, more affiliated with the IRGC, is more willing to stick this out, to remain in control over the Strait of Hormuz, and to sit out Donald Trump's the rest of his presidency, like we've heard reported recently, in order to, again, come out on top, where they know that the United States, where they have midterm, general elections, again, people care about what they're paying at the pump and the economic pressures and the price of goods. Like, it doesn't afford Donald Trump the ability, the time frame where he says he's now not worried about the time frame and he has all the time in the world. That's not what the American people are saying. Like, that's not what the feeling and the sentiments are from the American people. They want this fucking thing over. More and more people are getting more and more pissed off. More and more people are being more and more affected by the dramatic rise in cost, dramatic rise in prices of basically everything, which is the complete and total opposite of what Donald Trump said he was going to come in and do in his second term. So let me see if we can jump back into this article here that we were looking at, talking about the price of diesel. Right. So I just want to go through a little bit of this and just, recognize the dangers right now that we're facing. A lot is kind of been thrust into the background and swept underneath the rug because of the bombings and obviously the headline catching titles and things that have happened. But this says here, an Iranian official says the critical waterway will remain closed until the United States meets Iran's conditions. The attack comes as Iran continues to restrict shipping traffic through one of the most important trade routes in the world. The incident is rattling energy markets. Oil prices are among the highest seen since July, and diesel has soared in every part of the country in the last 24 hours. The national average for a gallon of gasoline stood at $4.07. According to AAA, diesel is at $5.46 a gallon. So if the truckers are paying, an exorbitant cost as far as, filling their truck to get the goods from A to B, that price increase is obviously going to be filtered down. It's going to be passed down to us, the consumer, because of how much it cost them increasingly to get that good to whatever store it got to you. Whichever store you picked it up, you got it off the shelf from. It says up from $3.69 a year ago. So just a year ago, diesel was at $3.69, now at $5.46, directly related to the actions of this administration and Benjamin Netanyahu. The sharp increase in diesel prices is not solely tied to the Middle East. The conflict between Ukraine and Russia, including Ukrainian strikes on Russian facilities, is also contributing to volatility in energy markets. I guess that's fair enough. They want to make a deal, but they're not going to make the kind of deal I feel is necessary. This is what Donald Trump said. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I feel like the idea of declaring it a territory, we have total control over the strait. And again, that's Donald Trump's ridiculous statements that he's continued to make. It says here the U.S. midterm elections approaching and a potential change in power in Congress possible. With elections in Israel taking place in October, Iran may be trying to run out the clock, which, again, you've seen here be picked up more and more as far as reports, from different outlets. And the Iranians at least putting it out into the zeitgeist, at least thrusting it out there into the atmosphere that they're willing to, withstand or outlast Donald Trump as far as his second term here, his entire presidency. But it says diesel is critical fuel for the global economy. Trucks that bring goods to stores are often powered by diesel. Farmers heavily rely on it during the busy summer season. Economists warn that the cost of high energy prices will eventually be passed along to consumers, with food prices a particular concern. Like, we haven't seen that already. So it just seems like, it's going to continue to be worse and worse the longer that this goes on, much like people have projected, right? The longer this persists, the worse the economic pressures are going to be. Here's another one here talking about jet fuel. So you can see here it says the global, as you can look here, the global average jet fuel price last week rose 8.2% compared to the week before to $158.9 per barrel. So you can see here, you go down to the graph. Check out this graph, guys. That's weird. Let me see if I can make this a little bigger on your screen. Nope, that didn't work. I think that's about as big as it's going to get on your screen. I'll hop out of the way here so you can see it. But do you guys notice any dramatic change in this graph? As it pertains to the price of jet fuel, which ultimately is filtered down into the cost of the ticket for an airline for your travel. Anybody notice what may have happened here in February in 2026? I'm just curious. Anything distinct that we could pinpoint? Anything we could look at that says, maybe that would be the direct cause as to the shift, the dramatic increase in the price of jet fuel? I'm drawing a blank here. I know we cover this stuff every day and I should know this shit, but I'm drawing a blank as to what happened in February of 2026 that allowed this to happen. You guys have anything in the chat that you could think of that may have, pushed these prices to the point here that we're seeing, the change that we're seeing Not sure. And then obviously, if we're looking today, August 2026, on this end of the graph, if you're looking here, this end of the chart, you can see the price is still well above. So you saw that initial spike, which kind of saw that secondary spike, as you can see somewhere around, April, March or April. You can see here in August, still well above what we were looking at before this war started. So by what data set, right, are we better off? What benefit has the United States in particular, our allies, seen come from this war that we've started? Because I've seen nothing but degradation. I've seen nothing but destruction. I've seen nothing but turmoil and strain and stress put between our allies and the United States. I've seen nothing but economic pressure and people put into economic ruin by this entire process. But I'm curious if MAGAs see this and they're like, I do remember that war started in February, and that's probably a reason why we're seeing that dramatic increase. You can see here jet fuel price versus the price of crude oil. You can see jet fuel in the blue. The dated Brent is the green line. So pretty much going up in connection with one another, right? One goes up, the other goes down, the other goes down. So you can see here, it's not directly 1-to-1, but you can definitely see here the comparisons and how it's kind of fluctuated evenly as far as ups and downs, peaks and valleys are concerned. But yeah, jet fuel, diesel, obviously the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is a huge point of concern right now, above and beyond anything that happens with bombings, civilian killings, risk, posed to our U.S. servicemen and women, what they're kind of thrust into as far as Donald Trump's maniacal plots and plans again. But like we continue to see, and this next clip will prove it even further, even the people that were most heavily involved in this cult, the people that were most likely to perpetuate the cult's beliefs and policies and be out there right next to the most psychopathic of people. I think I have a couple sound bites from one of Owen Schroyer's buddies. Yeah, I think this
cacophony,
get this.
A crescendo, a finale, a coup de grace.
Right? And then he's got one here where he says he's going to eat his neighbors, which is ironic considering Donald Trump said that the immigrants were eating cats and dogs. You got this sound.
My superpower's being honest. I will eat my neighbors.
Yep, I bet you would, you sick prick. But this next clip here is by Owen Schroyer, or from Owen Schroyer, I should say. And he's just the latest Marjorie Taylor Greene acolyte, or Marjorie Taylor Greene-like, Tucker Carlson-like moron to step his dumb head out of the cult, to finally have some sunlight hit his face, some grass hit his feet, apparently, because he decided to put this screed on social media, and I'm sure this is part of a longer screed, a longer rant on one of his live streams, I would assume. But this is being kind of thrust out there by a lot of Republicans, a lot of conservative accounts, and calling him out and saying that he's got Trump derangement syndrome. Owen Schroyer with Trump derangement syndrome. So just to show you how they'll thrust that and throw that little term onto anybody, regardless of who you are. They've now said that about Marjorie Taylor Greene, and who's the other? I think Candace Owens, to a certain extent, has called out some of Donald Trump's bullshit, and they've kind of thrown mud at the wall against her as well. Not saying that I'm there to stop any of that mud being flung in her way, and even if it was worse than mud, I'd be okay with it, but just showing you the infighting going on between these psychopaths. Well, this is Owen Schroyer, again, friend of and used to be buddy with, co-host, and run the same programs as Alex Jones. So just to give you a little bit of insight as to what type of person this asshole must be to work and to be affiliated in any way with Alex Jones through the worst of Alex Jones's career, like some of the most destructive and most nonsensical conspiracy theory laden bullshit years of Alex Jones's career. Owen Schroyer was right next to him, but they had a falling out. I don't know what their current situation is, but I know they did have a pretty big falling out where, Alex Jones crashed out heavily a bunch of times on different shows that he had on his network and decided to come out shirtless a bunch of times. But this is basically Owen Schroyer saying that Democrats are the only answer. So the only way forward, the only way to stop this is to vote for Democrats. So something that I never thought that I would heard Owen Schroyer say. I never thought that these assholes would get their head out of Donald Trump's asshole. But, here we are watching this take place. To what extent you believe them or give them any credibility, or if this is kind of a money-making scheme, or if they're seeing the writing on the wall as far as popularity and, the ability to like and to believe any of Donald Trump's bullshit anymore. You guys let me know. But this is where he's saying the only answer might be Democrats getting in there and stopping Trump from all the damage he's doing to this country. Wake up. You have been sold out. So speaking directly to conservatives, speaking directly to Republicans, speaking directly to MAGA, and anytime these riffs are, spotlighted or highlighted, I'm going to make sure to play them. Any big cracks that we can stick a pry bar into as far as the MAGA base, the MAGA cult, I'm gonna do my damnedest to pry that sumbitch open. I don't care if I got to use a crowbar, my foot, my arm, my tongue, or my ass. I'm gonna pry that open. So this is Owen Schroyer. Again, no flowers, no credit. Relaying exactly what type of person this guy is, but using this to our political benefit for our political expediency, where he's, at least in this 1 minute and 4 second clip, telling the truth. Sounds like he's more, engaged and in touch with reality than most of the other cult members or any of the other cult members are. But let me know what you guys think in the chat about this little rant that he goes on.
So the only answer might be Democrats getting in there and stopping this administration. Democrats getting in there and stopping Trump from all the damage he's doing to this country. It might be the only option. That's what people are realizing. Wake up, guys. Wake up, MAGA. Hey, I get it. You thought it was all great. No. Wake up. Wake up. Trump is George Bush, maybe worse. The economy's not getting any better. The Pentagon is broke. The debt is at a record high. Americans' debt is at a record high. You're in the Middle East. Americans are coming back in body bags. Wake up. Wake up. You have been sold.
I'd say he's got about a 7-iron. He's got about 160, 170 to the pin. He's taking about a 7-iron to Donald Trump's skull in this one. Let me know what you think about this one. I think he's going to stick it close. But yeah, this is Owen Schroyer basically taking a 7-iron to the skull of MAGA, as it were, hypothetically speaking and rhetorically speaking, of course. But yeah, this is it's funny to see in the year of our Lord 2026 that there are still people like Owen Schroyer that have the ability to recognize to what level they've been kind of led to believe this bullshit, gaslit, involved in the gaslighting themselves, involved in the propaganda themselves, now saying that the only way out of this fraud, the only way out of this disaster is voting for Democrats.
Out! Trump sold you out! And I wonder how many of these Americans that signed up for the military, a 19-year-old girl signs up for the military. She's dead now. I wonder if she signed up because she believed Donald Trump.
So again, all great points directly relating the promises, wishes, guarantees of success and perfect treatment from Donald Trump and how he rebuilt the military and they have the best equipment and best resources and, best life of any soldier or military on the planet. Again, now, how many people have been sacrificed by Donald Trump that originally raised their right hand because they believed in the bullshit that Donald Trump was espousing, right? Believed in the, Donald Trump pointing the finger at all of, basically our allies or people he would call bad actors on the planet that he was seeking to, sick the United States military on. So how many people are now dead and buried because they raised their right hand because of Donald Trump's bullshit? So great points that he's making, as much of a degenerate piece of shit as he is. And as how this doesn't wipe up or make up for any of the things that he's responsible for. I, again, will continue to use these clips for our political benefit, continue to show the other MAGA acolytes that haven't seen the light, that are still very well enveloped in this cult, kind of their own side, people on their own team talking shit about them, right? They're not going to listen to me. They're not likely to listen to you guys in the chat about how wrong they are. We get too frustrated too quickly anyway at this point in time talking to any of these morons, but they will have the ability to recognize and to listen to people that they're involved in their chats, have watched from time to time, recognize or respect him or Alex Jones or any of these other morons. Like, they will listen to them. They did follow Marjorie Taylor Greene at one point as much as they're trying to bash her. So even though they might be trying to play it off as cool as still following the MAGA cult, when they see the Marjorie Taylor Greens and the Tucker Carlsons and the Owen Schroyers and the Alex Jones say the shit that he said about Donald Trump, like, believe me, that puts up the red flags, that gets the wheels turning for these morons, and it either, it kicks them into a fight or flight. Right, they either kick in and they fight even harder, like Benny Johnson, for the cult and to obfuscate and to lie even more heavily for the cult, or they flight. They get behind and they recognize, much like Owen, and maybe they're not put it on social media, but inevitably changes the way that they think, or at least the way that they're going to vote in the future. So, but yeah, that was Owen Schroyer, surprisingly calling for the Democrats being the only way out, the only way forward. And I absolutely agree. No lies told as far as that 1 minute and 4 second segment was concerned. And none have been told, I don't believe, in this new Lego video that we're going to show you now either. This is a new one out by Explosive Media, talking about how Donnie is a liar. Liar Donnie. I think this is now probably the 3rd or 4th video, kind of ripping on Donald Trump as far as that, prominent nickname of being a liar, or Donnie Liar, or Liar Donnie. But let's see what trouble we can get into, as usual, here with Explosive Media and their new drop. I think it says it's their little post underneath. It says, "You played your last card. No more aces. You're discarded loser," which is LOSER, which is one of their more famous videos, I believe, which we've played on this show before. But all right, let's get into this new one. I think it's a short one here from Explosive Media, talking about how Donald Trump is obviously a liar.
Yeah. Keep that same energy. You ain't nothing but a fraud. Yo, call him what he is. Liar! Hey. Yeah. Hey, loser, come closer. I'm the expo.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, wow. Fucking doing him dirty. And he did it to himself. I got to let's let it be known. He did it to himself. But boy, oh boy. I mean, we can see here. Let's just pause for a second. We got Donald Trump seemingly in what looks to be the back of a limousine or a plane, maybe. He's holding a beverage in one hand, and in the other arm, he's got a little child dressed in some, like, what would be like a pink pajamas, it looks like, with a teddy bear on the front of it, and she's holding what looks to be a MAGA hat, a Make America Great Again hat, with a taco in the foreground. Trump always chickens out, and then with some sort of demonic looking horned beast to the left of Donald Trump, with the Israeli star, the Star of David, on the forehead, with the nasal piercing there. But Donald Trump's weeping while also really, really tightly holding on to this young child. So I think we can only assume what the allegations here are for Donald Trump and his affiliations and associations with Jeffrey Epstein. Not only that, but every other bad actor and affiliate of Jeffrey Epstein that Donald Trump's had relationships with over the years. But we continue.
Billionaire, your whole empire oppose, or you step down. Another liar takes the crown. The whole system is a circus. You're just a clown. You drop fake news, sitting high in your tower, morally bankrupt, just drunk on the power. You're fired. Played your last trump card. No more aces, boy. You're discarded. Look in the mirror. Tell me what you see. Big ego crushed. Fake react.
So he's looking at Cuba in the mirror, and he sees a big, strong, tough man in the reflection. And the same thing with Venezuela. He saw, when he looks at Venezuela, he sees a big, strong, tough man in response because, he was able to wield and utilize the United States military to go down there and capture Maduro. I have a feeling that when he looks at Iran, he's going to have a different reflection staring him back in the face.
We covered in stone.
And I'm correct, because Iran would be the Grim Reaper looking back at Iran. Looking back at Trump.
We spell it in the fire. Ready for the truth. Call him the liar. Labor of blood on your pride. island, Epstein secrets you hide. All your crimes buried deep inside. Rotten systems, you're gonna slide. L-I-A-R. Yeah, we see you. L-I-A-R. We don't wait for the socials, yeah, you're hiding in fear, trying to silence every voice you don't wanna hear. From the MJ to Diana, yeah, we see how it goes. The system buries light, but the shot.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Is that Michael Jackson? Is that supposed to be MJ? God damn.
What shows Illuminati, pots blood in the perjury you lie, but the mission is Epstein.
Operation Epstein. It crosses out the word epic, right? And then has Fury and Epstein on the bottom of it. And all it's tied together. It's Greenland, Venezuela, Cuba, Canada. Looks like Iran something. Iran PR. I don't know what that says. That's the Strait of Hormuz, it looks like. Oil drilling on the bottom. So basically everything tied in with this, again, ridiculous war that he started.
Jury, yeah, round fool, yeah, the records are proof. Now we expose it all. This is hateful truth. Look in the mirror. Tell me what you see. Big ego crushed. Fake reality. We carve it in stone. We spell it in the fire. Ready for the truth. Call him the liar. Labor of blood on your pride. All your crimes buried deep inside.
Did it say Stormy Daniels? So it's a picture of Stormy Daniels that he was trying to hide, in his entire basket of secrets that he's clearly trying to dig up on his golf course here, where he dumps everything that he doesn't give a shit about or doesn't want anybody to see, much like his ex-wife. Oh, shit. Hit the wrong button. All right, I'm back at it. Sorry.
In systems, you're gonna slide. L-I-A-R. Yeah, we see you. L-I-A-R. We don't believe you. L-I-A-R. 13%. That's a failing grade. The world is watching. Liar!
So the recent drop there from the Lego videos, explosive media to be more exact. But again, any one of them gets my head going, I gotta give credit to. And they're touching on things that are happening in reality, things that we actually know have happened, things that have come from this disastrous war. So again, not too many notes as far as a lot of these videos are concerned. And like I said, anytime they can get your head bobbing, they're starting off in the right direction. But let's jump into this next article, this next clip, if I may, because this is the one coming out from, and I don't know if this is from a documentary. I'm not sure what this is, from just kind of some behind the scenes from Donald Trump, but it gives a good insight, a good clip into his relationship with and how he functions around Natalie Hopp. This is from a couple of years ago. So like I said, there could have been some things that have changed as far as the way that they do things, but an old dog typically doesn't learn new tricks. So I have a hard time believing that too much has changed from this. But let me throw this on your screen. This is from this is from behind the scenes that Donald Trump was trying to concoct his responses and Truth Social posts in response to Kamala Harris in 2024 taking the nomination for the Democratic Party. So she's out there speaking. She's at a speech, and they have all of the degenerates together. They got Matt Gaetz. They got Natalie Hopp. They got Tulsi Gabbard. They got Jason Miller. They got Stephen Miller. They got fucking Dan Scavino. All the scumbags were associated like it was a big Marvel meetup somehow. And they had all the superheroes, but just the opposite together. But yeah, this is, I think, gives some pretty good insight into the way in which Donald Trump puts out his Truth Social bullshit, kind of the usefulness of Natalie Hopp. One of the ways that she's useful, she doesn't directly wipe Donald Trump's ass and balls in this video, but, this is more along the lines of helping him type on the computer because he's too busy fucking stuffing his face with the cheeseburger or a bottle of Coke or something like that. But let me see here. Like I said, this gives a pretty good insight into what's probably going on right now with Donald Trump. reciting his maniacal views to Natalie Harp and kind of going over and picking what's good, what's not good. You can see a lot of the times Matt Gaetz trying to feed him information or facts, and he'll concoct a True Social post out of that. Same thing with Jason Miller. You'll see in this where he's either leaving himself a voice recording, or he's speaking in, doing a voice text to somebody else. And he's basically asking for all of the footage of people coming to the border. So he knows he's going to have to utilize that as a talking point, and any footage of people storming the border he could use. He actually specifically requests footage of anybody with a Biden or Harris t-shirt on. So like I said, just remind you that this is 2024. But I do think that this is going to give you a good indication as to how this kind of plays out nowadays. Trump just kind of blurting out shit. She's sitting there typing away on the fucking computer in all caps. And, they kind of go back and forth. But this is just, I think, a couple minutes, if I'm not mistaken, maybe a minute and 30 seconds of them behind the scenes during the speech Kamala Harris was given. And this is how they concoct their bullshit talking points. This is how they, everything that Kamala says, they have to get out something to combat that in real time. And whether it's lie, made up, bullshit, propaganda, it doesn't matter. And this is how they do it.
Thank you. It's about 20. There must be 35.
Traveling from India to California with an
So that's Natalie Harp. If she was any closer, she'd be on the guy's fucking lap. And they're going over closely, very closely, what she's putting out on True Social, what he says. She's adding her little ideas. People in the room are chiming in with their little bullshit. But this is when she's not wiping his asshole, right? When she's not changing his diaper. This is what she's doing.
unshakable dream to be.
And you can see here they actually, I'll even get out of the way so you can see all of the True Social posts. So you can line up what he's saying with his actual posts that went out on True Social.
These scientists.
How many people are watching?
Can we tell how many, Dan? How many people are watching?
So this is him always being, wrapped up in views and like how many people watched and what the ratings were. So he's curious at this time how many people are watching Kamala Harris in her speech, make her speech again back in 2024. So he's wondering how popular it is, how much of the country is watching. Like he wants to know the ratings, and she's right there to try to get him that information.
She's talking about how great San Francisco was before she.
You can literally hear Kamala Harris speaking in the background, and he's trying to combat or trying to again obfuscate from anything that she's saying directly in her speech. He's trying to change the subject or put it back on her. So you can literally hear her speaking in the background, and they're coming up with all of these tweets and True Social posts. But this is exactly how they do it, right? This is they get around on Air Force One or anywhere else that they meet or in the White House, and they hash out all of this bullshit propaganda, gaslighting, anything that they can come out with. A lot of the times it's Natalie saying, "Hey, do you like this?" Trump will say, "Hey, post this immediately," and she'll go and, "Yes, sir. Let me get that out for you." It's all different,
Destroyed it. A lot of talk about childhood. We've got to get to the border, inflation, and crime.
He's not proposing a single policy, not one policy proposal. Harris's biography.
So again, you can see this Stephen Miller's bald head. You can see because it looks like a penis right in the middle of your screen.
Won't lower your prices at the grocery store.
Natalie Harp, obviously, there behind, next to Trump. As I mentioned.
They're putting veterans
There's Tulsi Gabbard's in the room.
out on the street, so
33,000.
You can see Matt Gaetz's fat head. Oh, you can't see him because I'm in the way, but now you can see Matt Gaetz's fucking fat square head in the background.
Homeless veterans. Country. Okay,
There's Susie Wiles sitting quietly in the corner.
Cindy's out.
That is Jason Miller, if I'm not mistaken. So again, he comes back into play where he's speaking into his phone, and you can see exactly how they try to piece together the propaganda pieces, like the visual effects of the hordes and the caravans rushing towards the border or rushing towards a gate. Like you can see how they put that into conjunction with Donald Trump's True Social post, and they align the propaganda and the bullshit coming from Trump with things that they're putting on Fox News or OAN or Newsmax or any of these other things. So it lines up, it's compatible with the bullshit that he's spewing so that the propaganda mouthpieces aren't far behind.
The things of which she complains. The things of which she complains.
In many ways, Donald Trump is an unserious man.
Oh. You hear that, folks?
And who's this guy? We were trying to figure this out last night. I don't think we ever came to a conclusion. Is this Melania's father? Who's this guy? Why do I feel like I've seen him before? I feel like I should know who it is, but I just can't put a finger on it. Is this Melania's dad? No, it's not Walt Nada, right? I know that much. Corrine says it looks like Melania's dad. I think it is. Like, that's the first thing that popped into my head was Melania's dad, but I'm not 100%. Not 100%. So let me know in the chat if you guys can confirm who this guy is you're looking at on the screen here. I believe, like I said, my first thought leans towards Melania's dad, but if I'm wrong, please correct me in the chat and I'll know. Somebody said Thurston Howell. Is that a joke? Am I being punked? Why do I feel like that's like an actor from the fucking 30s? Hold on. Why do I feel like I should know who that is? Yeah, that's. Yeah, I was gonna say Gilligan's Island, for fuck's sake. Come on, don't be punking me like that. Don't be punking me like that. I'm gonna read it in the chat, for Christ's sakes. I know. Well, I'm a lot younger than a lot of you guys here in the chat, so it wasn't immediately relevant to me. Gilligan's Island. I watched a little bit of Gillies, but it wasn't top notch. Not Melania's dad. I just Googled. Oops, sorry. Dame Dog says not Melania's dad. I just Googled. Okay. So who the fuck is it? Who is this guy? Melania's dad is a fat guy. Tiff says. Tiff confirms. Doesn't look like Melania's dad. Okay. So I was wrong. Do we know who it is though? Anybody in the chat know who this guy is and why he's right up Donald Trump's ass as far as concocting his Truth Social post? Not that he chimes in or gives any input whatsoever, but he's obviously in the inner circle. He's obviously closely aligned and affiliated with this. But let me know if you guys figure it out in the chat. Try to get my attention so I can figure it out. But all right, let's go back to this. Where was I? Where'd it go? Oh, it's right here. I got you. All right, we're back.
It's great, right? Ready? These prosecutions were all started by her and Biden against their political opponents. Me.
Just the most fucking vain, I don't know, just mentally unstable thing to do. They're talking about himself in the third person while relaying this message to somebody sitting 2 fucking inches away from him, like he can't type, and their prosecutions were all started by her and Biden against their political opponent, me, right? And he wants that tweeted out on his behalf by somebody else in response to something that he's watching live on TV. It's just the most narcissistic fucking thing you could possibly do.
Get that out right away.
Have of caravans heading to the border.
And this is right. Here's Jason Miller. I just wanted to get to this point. We could probably dive out of this after this, but listen to what he says here. Listen to what he says, because he goes on to say that caravans going towards the border. And again, I don't know if he's leaving himself some sort of note where he could use this as a talking point where he goes on Fox News later, or if he's sending a direct, voice memo, a voice message to somebody where he's requesting this type of footage. But he's literally saying, I want people in Biden and Harris t-shirts and footage of them storming the border or going towards the border or something happening with the border. Clearly trying to use that as propaganda. Ready? Listen to this next clip.
Get that out right away.
Have of caravans heading to the border. People showing up to the border with Biden-Harris t-shirts. Everything we have of people swarming the border.
So he says everything that we have on people swarming the border. So caravans heading to the border. So obviously it cut off. It didn't show the oranges of the of the discussion that he's having either with himself or somebody else. But he says people showing up to the border with Biden and
Harris t-shirts. Everything we have of people swarming.
And then he says everything we have on people swarming the border, right? So sounds to me like he's requesting this from somebody, right? Somebody in his team, one of his assistants, so that he can inevitably pass this along or post it to social media or give it to Fox News for Hannity or Jesse Waters to run on their show, right? So caravans heading to the border, people showing up to the border with Biden-Harris t-shirts. Those first 2 things almost sound like he was leaving himself a voice memo, leaving himself a note to be like, okay, this is what I could say if I'm ever on Fox News, based on what she's saying in the speech, she being Kamala Harris in the speech that she's given in the background. But then that second part there, that third sentence, everything we have on people swarming the border almost feels like, he's demanding this evidence. He's demanding this kind of footage or any footage that would suggest that, much like they did with the reflecting pool. Remember how Donald Trump went out there and said there was a ton of footage, there's a bunch of footage of all these criminals out there with machetes and fucking axes and samurai swords hacking up the reflecting pool. And then immediately after that, just so happened that the Interior Department came up with a very grainy piece of footage of somebody sticking their hand in the water. You can't tell what the fuck they're doing, but clearly not in the middle of the reflecting pool, hacking it up with a machete or an axe or anything like Donald Trump suggested. But that made its way onto Jesse Waters' broadcast on his show, I believe the night after, or not that long after Donald Trump said he had evidence to suggest, had video evidence to prove that these criminals did, in fact, go on to vandalize the reflecting pool. So you can see how it goes hand in hand. And this is, like I said, this is 2024, still working the same way in 2026. This is why I believe what you're hearing now, what you're seeing now, and the way that it works in this can't be much different than the way that they're going about things today. Some of the players might have changed. Matt Gaetz may not be in the inner circle as much. Tulsi Gabbard, obviously. But that doesn't mean that they're not kind of replaced by degenerates and scumbags that are doing the exact same thing that they're doing in this fucking video right now. Let me play it. Can I play it? No?
Forming the border.
She paid bail for rioters in the Minnesota Freedom.
So here's Matt Gaetz, right? Here's Matt Gaetz' input. So this is the Republican talking point that Kamala Harris raised money to get people out of jail. I forget the exact backstory of what happened, but clearly it was something much different than the way they explained and how they tried to make it seem like that this went. But here's Matt Gaetz talking to Donald Trump saying, hey, listen, you can use this. A lot of people are saying that she directly raised funds to help criminals and murderers and thieves and whatever the fuck they say get out of prison. So this can combat, right? And this hasn't, this can combat the January 6 pardons, right? This can combat the fact that we had violent people on our side. So if you want to say that, you can just say, do the what about where she helped, violent people get out of jail, and obviously utilizing the, conservative right-wing MAGA talking point. But listen to how it goes. It goes right from Matt Gaetz to Donald Trump, from Donald Trump to Natalie Harp, through her fingers onto the screen, right onto Truth Social.
She paid and raised bail. She paid bail to get the violent rioters in Minnesota out of jail.
10 months let Minnesota burn. Kamala Harris.
I think that's Dan Scavino. I believe that's Dan Scavino. Dan Scumbag Scavino.
I love it. Put it in there. Put it right in.
Right, so he just came to Donald Trump with something. Hey, here's a bit of information I think we can use. Right, I saw this on Twitter. I saw this posted by this random account. Maybe we could use it. And you can hear Trump say, "Yep, throw that right in with the rest of it. Get that out immediately."
With the stuff, right?
With that post,
He would use the immense powers.
Good.
You could do it either that or separate.
Say more lies, lying about the Project 2025.
Oh, lying against Project 25, which she knows, and so do all Democrats.
And even typing in all caps, right, to make him feel special. Like craziness. Every time he says or has a fucking random thought, she's going to pull up Microsoft Word here or whatever the fuck it is and type in all caps to make him feel like a big boy.
That I have absolutely nothing to do with.
And again, as bullshit as we found that out to be, and how much of Project 2025 has already been enacted, how many people responsible for Project 2025 are now, sitting right behind or next to Donald Trump and are responsible for a lot of these, maniacal fucking policies that they've tried to put in place as well. But I think there was one more that I wanted to get through, and I think I'll get you guys out of here on this one. I know I'm over time, but fuck them. But all right, we'll get out of here on this. This is Greg Kelly, the world's dumbest man. This isn't going to be too long either. But again, this is him thinking he's flexing, but not really doing the flexing that he thinks. He's now just exposing more of the Trump family crimes. But again, trying to do the whataboutisms, pointing the finger in the opposite direction, trying to, talk about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden even further. You think he's a little mad about the recent media tour that Hunter Biden's been on and the attention that Hunter Biden's been getting. So he had to make this little short clip basically stating that, don't look at any of the corruption. Don't look at any of the illegal things that the Trump family has been responsible for. Don't look at the Pentagon contracts. And he actually plays a clip of Hunter Biden talking about the illegal Pentagon contract that Don Jr. got, which was the $620 million Pentagon loan to a Don Jr. backed company, because obviously that must have been the most capable company. It just so happened to have John Jr. be an investor in that company. But he thinks he's flexing here. He thinks this is like, he's making fun of Hunter Biden, but really he's just exposing more of the Trump family corruption and does a very bad job of trying to point the finger in the other direction. But like I said, we can just get through a couple minutes of this, and then I'll get you guys out of here. Well, before I get you out of here, obviously at the end of every single podcast, in case this is the first time or one of the first time joining us, at the end of every single show, we make sure to thank, congratulate, show our gratitude to every single person that sent in a Venmo, that sent in a super sticker or a super chat or hit a milestone in the YouTube. Thank you to, obviously, that the thanks gets extended to everybody on all of the other platforms as well, especially the ones that we're monetized on and you can contribute to, I believe, with the bits on Twitch and stuff like that. So much appreciated. But at the end of every single show, we make sure we thank and appreciate all of the people responsible for keeping this show going. So stick around for that. We'll just get through a few minutes of Greg Kelly, the dumbest man on social media, the dumbest man ever to have a camera in his face and given his own show here on Newsmax. Let's see what bullshit we can call out here.
Yep, Hunter Biden is everywhere, and he is feeling sorry for himself and his family. He's still on that podcast circuit, and what's really getting him upset, he didn't make as much money as the Trumps, right? He always wanted to be a legitimate businessman.
And again, imagine taking that from what Hunter Biden's out there telling people, right? Imagine that's the takeaway, that you think Hunter Biden's upset that he wasn't allowed to be given a $620 million Pentagon contract, or like Eric, another $30 million Pentagon contract, or like any of the other ways in which they've been able to enrich themselves through crypto or businesses that they've been affiliated with, or foreign dealings with other countries or dignitaries, right? I mean, it's crazy that he would come out of listening to, and I'm sure he probably hasn't listened to dick of any of what Hunter Biden has been saying besides the clip that he's about to play. And it's literally just Hunter telling everybody about the corruption, telling everybody about, like, you thought that the Republicans and what they were saying about me was bad. Well, look at what's actually happening. Look at what's going on in reality. Like, you thought it was nepotism. You thought that people were afforded and handed positions of power and a lot of money because of what their last name was. Well, you're going to get a fucking, wait till you get a load of this whole Trump family, which is kind of the, the general gist of what Hunter Biden says, at least in this clip. But, Greg Kelly goes immediately to not denying any of the claims, not disputing any of the facts that Hunter Biden comes out and says, but immediately going to, let me point the finger elsewhere, but basically just making an entire clip telling everybody else about how corrupt the Trump administration and the Trump family has been in this second term.
And instead, he chose a life of crack cocaine. That's his decision. It's not the Trump's fault.
These guys, okay, Don Jr. got the single largest loan guarantee from the Department of Defense ever handed out, of over $600 million for an energy company, a fusion energy company, of which he has zero experience in. What?
And remember, all of the Burisma talk, right? All of the, how did fucking Hunter get a spot on this board? Why is he working for this company? Burisma. Like, he doesn't deserve it. He doesn't deserve that. Oh, why are people buying his paintings? It's just fucking colors splashed on a screen, and look at the price that people are paying. Like, well, wait till you get a load of what the fuck's going on with this family, the Trump family, right? If you thought you were pissed off about the things that you were making up and making a big deal out of nothing about, like, wait till you get a load of what's actually going on in reality. Like, wait till you see the nepotism that's happening here. Wait till you see the fraud and corruption that we're exposing here from the Trump family in the second term here. Like, it's gonna blow your fucking socks off is what's gonna happen. And basically, to summarize, and we'll go on and watch, obviously, but Greg Kelly says that because the, Don Jr. and Eric have grown up as Donald Trump's sons, then clearly they're somehow going to be allowed to profit off of these Pentagon contracts. Like, that's quite literally his defense. Like, well, they're Donald Trump's sons. You know, they've been rich all this time. Like, wow, clearly they're going to be able to, to rake in almost $1 billion in Pentagon loans, and I'm not going to have anything to say to it. Where I spent 4 years plus bashing on Hunter Biden because he worked for Burisma, or because he got this, that, or the other thing, because he's Joe Biden's son, or because he has, he's an addict and had a drug problem. You know, all of the things that really, that don't stand up to scrutiny when, again, you place it in comparison with the Trump family, with everything that Trump and his family have done and continue to do. Add in the $100,000 a month, early access to his Truth Social posts, so that you could either put money into accounts, put money into stocks that he's going to talk about. He's going to praise. He's going to go talk about how people should buy these companies and invest in these companies. Or if you're going to pull money out of the company that Donald Trump's going to go on and bash. Right? Or you're going to bet on Polymarket, or you're going to bet on Calci, whatever the fuck. So it's just, his latest act of corruption, just to kind of throw in, a little icing on the cake there.
Does Don Jr. have in anything other than being handed a check in an office by his dad? The New Yorker, assessment of how much money that they've made off of in the first 10 months?
Billions.
It's like what,
$3.4
billion that they can identify? And the increase in the wealth of the Trump family in 9 months?
It's jealousy. It's like, man, all that money. I was out there trying to get money. Look, it's a totally different.
So again, not once even coming close to addressing the allegations of corruption. Not even once remotely close to dancing even along the edges, right, of coming close to responding to some of the facts, some of the, what Hunter Biden was saying there, and what we've seen come out as far as these Pentagon contracts, the crypto schemes, the NFTs. I mean, you name it, and they've been involved in it in their second term as far as trying to enrich themselves. But it's jealousy as far as that's the big fucking journalistic, like contribution that Greg Kelly has to this segment, is that it's just jealousy. He wishes he could make more money. Not saying anything about the legalities, not saying anything about the criminalities of what he's espousing or addressing any of those, but just saying it's all jealousy. And then listen to this excuse that he gives here.
Set of circumstances, and he should be very, very grateful that he has the pardon, and that it looks like the federal government was covering up for this guy. You heard about this operation? What was it called? Roaming River, Wading River, Round River.
So the articles, the documents that he's now splashing across your screen way too fast for you to read any single one of them is what is referred to as Operation Round River. Now, I did a little quick deep dive, not a quick dive. I did a quick dive into this just before I came on, and this was basically the efforts of the Biden family to get ahead of, or to get out there and to discount, or to dispute, or to, again, prove false any of the claims made against him, his family, anybody else, right? So this is basically, okay, go out there, and all of the lies that they're spreading against my family, let me know, so that way we can go out there and combat them. We can release the real information. We can tell everybody the truth. So he's trying to make it seem like this is an investigation into all of the crimes that the Biden family committed, Hunter Biden committed, and it's just absolutely not. It's not even remotely close. Here, I'll type this in just real quick, and I'll get you guys out of here on this, just calling them out. I'll do Operation Round River Explains, right? Just so you don't think I'm making it up. Let it load in here. All right, so let me do this. Throw this on your screen. So Operation Round River was a secret FBI counterintelligence operation launched in December 2019, aimed at neutralizing and discrediting allegations of corruption surrounding the Biden family. Declassified in August 2026 by the White House Government Transparency Task Force, the operation was run by a special group of analysts within the FBI's Foreign Influence Task Force Russia, the FITF. Instead of investigating the factual merits of the corruption allegations, the unit classified reports regarding Hunter Biden, Burisma, and Ukraine as Russian disinformation to shield Joe Biden's 2020 presidential campaign. Critics declassified the files to frame it as a reverse mirror operation to Crossfire Hurricane. But reality, what it looks like is them just trying to get ahead of these stories and lies and kind of conspiracy theories that were being promulgated and being spread by the Republicans is what it looks like to me. You know what I mean? Like I said, I could be wrong as far as how in depth or what the inner workings look like, but it doesn't seem to be anything that Greg Kelly is now saying that it was. Like, he's saying that there's clear evidence of all of the crimes and corruption and illegalities and criminalities that they were involved in, and that's just not what I've seen kind of drawn out here. But he doesn't show any of the papers. Throw this back on, and we'll end on this. He doesn't show anything, right? You'd think if it was that damning, if there was that much evidence proving what he says it was proving, he would stop and show some of these documents. But never in this, segment here does he go on to show any of those documents. That's as close as you get right here to see any of that. Now, does that say anything to you, right? Is that giving you any pertinent information there on the screen? And then he goes on to basically say that because Don Jr., Eric, and Ivanka were raised rich and under the wing of Donald Trump, even though they all fucking hated each other and never talked to each other at certain points in their life, like, they deserve to have all these government contracts. Listen to this.
Like Hunter again, they were all international businessmen and women.
International businessmen and women. Definitely not the first things associated with either one of those fucking morons. Okay? I'd say the closest thing you probably got to that was Ivanka, right? Ivanka, what the fuck's her name? It's not important enough. Who gives a shit? The blonde one, right? But she's probably the closest you'll get. And that's not even fucking remotely close, not even on the same continent as being this like internationally recognized business person, being, the first thing associated with them. I think grifter, con men, having their dad be best friends with Jeffrey Epstein, being, within Jeffrey Epstein's presence for so much of their lives, that whole thing, I think that comes up way ahead of like international business people, because Don Jr. is about as dumb as you can fucking get. And his brother's a box of fucking rocks and bricks just walking right next to him. You know what I mean? Just the dumbest possible people that you could imagine on the face of the planet. And they've been given with a golden spoon every fucking thing that they now have to show. And they've stolen everything else, above and beyond that. But all right, we've gone way over today. My apologies. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me. I really do respect and admire all of the people that stick with us till the end of the show, making sure that you, stick with us while we, congratulate and thank everybody that sends in a super chat or sends in a Venmo, or again, is just very, in tuned and engaged with the content here. I know that's kind of secondary in my beliefs. A lot of the chat in the community is why you guys come. I think listening to me rant and rave is probably a secondary aspect in that. But I do appreciate, no matter why, you guys come here and spend some time with me. I just appreciate that you do take the time out of your day to do so. So let's thank some people on Venmo. If there's anybody kind enough to send over a buck or two on the old Venmo slice, I want to make sure to thank you guys for keeping this show going. Today, let's see here. Erica B, thank you so much. Send over $10 on Venmo. And Erica says, Brian, I always look forward to your show. Thanks, Petrazi. Oh, thank you, Petrazi. Much appreciated. It's cool, and hopefully I'm not revealing too much. Again, no last names here, but it's always cool to put a name and during the Zooms a face behind the screen names in the chat. So thank you so much, Petrazi. My apologies if I'm half doxing you, but like I said, no last names. And thank you, Jeff. Much appreciated in the chat. A tip, no tax on tips. Much appreciated as he sends in $4.20. So that is definitely fitting and will be put to good use, Jeff. You can be assured. Right under Jeff is going to be Roxanne. Thank you, Roxanne E, for everything, for the $5 you sent in on Venmo, for all of your contributions, for all of the kind words, and you say for the swear jar. Much appreciated, Roxanne. Thank you for that. I think I kept it pretty tame. It's not beneficial to anybody when I fly off the handle, and YouTube definitely doesn't show it out when I use too much of a spicy language. They typically don't like sending that stuff out. So I try to find a happy medium. But thank you, Marty, and he says, for the 12 months I've been a Blunt Politics member on Patreon, to another year with less cruel, less war, and less criminal news. Amen to that, Marty. Thank you so much for your $24 Venmo, for your 12 months and 1 year, obviously, of being a contributor, for being a member over there on the Patreon. And then obviously I definitely second and can confirm that we're hoping for less cruelty, less war, and less criminal news to have to be reported on. So much appreciated to you, Marty. Thank you so much. Hope you're having a great day. Thank you to Damon as well. Dame Dog in the chat says it sent over $10 on Venmo, says, quote, not dark money. Well, of course, because we can't take dark money. That's not what we do here. We're a very open, transparent, and independent channel, which is why we have so many great people like you guys that keep us running. So right under Dame was John M. Thank you so much, John M. Great to see you both last night in the Zoom. Says, quote, for the sustained effort day in and day out. Much appreciated, John. I know you were speaking about that last night and how difficult it is for, people to have shows like this and to sift through all of this news on a daily basis. And, I will continue to throw it back on you guys as far as, how impressed I am at your willingness to continue to, stay informed, to be engaged in the fight, to support channels like this. So as much as, and it is difficult, obviously, and it takes, a huge mental toll to sift through this type of stuff on a daily basis. Gaza, the war in Ukraine, Trump's corruption, the degradation to the society here in our own country, the plight of our own American people. Like it's a lot to deal with, but I am a chatter first and foremost, and I just totally respect you guys and your willingness and ability to continue to support channels like this and to stay in the fight. So much appreciated to you guys. Thank you to Brian H. For the $5 you sent over on Venmo. Says Monday fun day, subfloor drone, flub so yeah. All right, I'll get it. Monday fun day, subfloor done, frames going up, my part almost done. Slava Ukraine, Heroyam Slava, right back at you, Bry Guy. Thank you so much, and then we'll get over here onto the YouTube side of things, and thank everybody in the YouTube chat for your contributions, whether it be membership milestones, gifting memberships to people, sending in bits and jewels and whatever those mean. I love it. I appreciate it. Can't thank you enough. So let's start off today with Steven. Thank you so much, Steven. Shout out to you. W's in the chat for Steven for being here for a member for 20 months. Let's fucking go. The world is just as crazy now as when I joined. Yeah. Well, I guess it hasn't gotten worse, right? If it's just as crazy, it hasn't gotten worse. So I was just trying to find some daylight there. I was trying to find some positivity, and it just took me a second. So, Steven, thank you. Congratulations on being here for 20 months. Much appreciated, my friend, on being a supporter of this channel for so long. And hopefully we at some point can make this world a better place as opposed to seeing it get worse, worse off. So thank you, Steven, for kicking us off today. Thank you to Frisky for the 2 jewels with the silver star. Obviously a Steelers fan. Shout out to you, Frisk. Hope you are having a great day. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the contribution. David Weiss, much appreciated for the 333. The better half of 666 due to the pen clicks. Oh my fucking God, Hannity almost drove me up a wall with that shit, right? There was more that I wanted to show, but I couldn't deal with the fucking clicking of the pen. Like, I just get that guy a Zyn, right? Like, let him smoke his vape. If that's what he's going to turn into, like, give him his vape. I'd rather see him with a fucking vape hanging out of his face than listen to the pen clicks. Not that we watch much of Sean, but you know what I mean. But thank you, David. Hope you're having a great day, my friend. Thank you to Tina for the 10 jewels along with the gold coin. Hope you're having a great day. Thank you to Colleen. Much appreciated for the $20, heading right into the swear jar, as is typically necessary. So much appreciated, Colleen, for keeping us going. Hope you're having a great day as well. Thank you to Marcus. What's up, Marcus? Shout out to you, my brother. Hope you're having a great day. Thank you for the 10 jewels and the hiding. I don't know what the secondary aspect typically means as far as the jewels is concerned. I don't know if you guys write that or if that's just what 10 jewels always means. But Marcus, I do appreciate it, my friend. One day I will learn. Marcus is back at it with another 5 jewels with a treat. Right in my wheelhouse. I'm going to have a treat right after this, so that sounds good. Colleen, back at it again right after that. Thank you for the $10. Where the heck is Rubio and Vance? Also heard Kegseth is floating a 2028 presidential run. What the fuck? Wouldn't surprise me in the least. And as to your first question, where the heck is Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance? Well, they have been... they know that Jared Kushner has the lead on this, right? So they know that, as long as Kushner's out there, giving his 2 cents and having meetings and meeting with Hamas and stuff, that they kind of have to stay into the background. Plus, nothing really positive to report. Very tough to spin shit nowadays. So, it's probably them kind of, hiding. That's probably the good answer. Probably just hiding. But thank you, Colleen. I appreciate you and the $10. Thank you to Bicycle Mike. Israel and now orcs. I mean, it's tough to come up to any other conclusion. It really is. I mean, it's just blatant in your face. The government officials are literally telling you that these are the policies. The genocide is the policy. So to come to any other conclusion besides that Israel is now absolutely a terrorist state that should be sanctioned, that should be put on every fucking blacklist, humanly possible, that should be cut off from all aid, sanctions, and weaponry being sent their way. Not sanctions, excuse me, aid and weaponry being sent their way. Absolutely. I don't see how you can come to any other conclusion. We continue to play literally the direct verbatim words, the videos from the Israeli officials, whether it's Itamar Ben-Gvir, whether that's Bezalel Smotrich, whether that's Benjamin Netanyahu. I mean, the list fucking continues as far as these genocidal freaks that are now perpetrating these war crimes, the genocide in multiple areas right now, and continue to see the Israeli settlers push into the West Bank to drive away and to kill as many of the Palestinians that are still left in that territory as well. So how you can come to any other conclusion, I do not know. So Bicycle Mike, thank you so much for being here. Shout out to you for the $2. Shout out to Luis. Much appreciated, Luis. Great to see you, my friend. I don't know, maybe I'm missing it. Maybe I'm just kind of blanking, but I feel like I haven't seen you in a while. If that's the case, great to see you. If not, my apologies. Don't bait us with happiness saying that Mitch McConnell is dead. Oh, you saw that post? Great show when you and Hal have a conversation. It's more entertaining than anything on any news channel, especially fake news. Well, I think that's because we're both heading in the same direction. We just have different paths and ways and ideas of how to get there. Right. So I think that's what kind of leads to a lot of the good conversations and, kind of a lot of the good debates, right? The disagreements that Hal and I have had, but always coming to a resolution, always recognizing that, whatever conversations and as heated as they get sometimes, often not being heated, but sometimes it's gotten, a little bit heated. And we always come to, an understanding at the end of it that we're both trying to head in the same direction. We both have obviously different ideas, ways that we were brought up, things that we, that we espouse. And that's just the way of life. That's just nature, as it were. But I appreciate you for recognizing that, Luis, and the kind words and how much you get from the conversations, both enjoyment and entertainment. So much appreciated, Luis. Great to see you. Thank you for the 10. Shout out to you. W's in the chat. Patrick, how are you, my brother? Thank you for being here for 28 months. Let's fucking go. Shout out and W's in the chat to Patrick. Everybody else reaching their milestone. Thank you, Bry Guy, for the double dose of the 199. Says just rode 100 miles and caught the end of the show on a fucking what? Did you just ride 100 miles? Better be a fucking motorcycle or an airplane. What the hell? You're not biking. You're not bicycling 100 miles. I hope not. I mean, if you are, great on you. Good on you for being able to do so. But my fucking ass is sore just listening to that. But no, Bry Guy, thank you so much for the $1.99. And then right after that, another $1.90. Wrapped job, hopped on my, okay, should have just waited. If I had just waited, that would have given me my answer. But of course, I jumped the gun. But 100 miles, even on a bike, and I don't know, better be a big, comfy, long cruiser, right? Like a long distance cruiser. I don't know. 100 miles on a motorcycle just doesn't seem, although, like I said, it's kind of my dream side quest one day to ride through Vietnam or Thailand on a motorcycle or a scooter or whatever the fuck they use over there. They got everything. I think they got millions and millions of the goddamn thing, so you can kind of pick and choose from the litter. But yeah, so I don't want to discount it too much. But thank you, Bry Guy, for taking the time out of your day, taking the time out of your trip to join us and send in a contribution. Very much appreciated. And Ruben says, where is Mitch? And again, in case you're curious as to where the Mitch comments are coming from, I posted on Blue Sky this morning that Mitch McConnell is dead. Prove me wrong. Kind of thrusting it onto the Republicans to come up with anything besides these AI photos that we've seen repeatedly. Why would they show photos of him sitting upright, being fine, but nobody then gets to talk to him? Nobody receives a text message or a phone call besides Scott Jennings. Not making much fucking sense. So, he's dead until proven otherwise, and the Republicans to this moment in time have not been able to do so. So appreciate you, Ruben. Thank you so much to everybody else in this chat that keeps this show going and growing. We're trying to reach 25,000 subscribers by midterm elections. I know we're kind of, shooting into the sun, as it were, for that goal. But, if you don't kind of, if you don't aim high, what's the fucking point of shooting in the first place? But thank you guys so much for getting us to this point. I think we're somewhere close to 21,000 subscribers, 28, 20.8 or 21.8. I don't know. We're somewhere in that general vicinity. It's not really the most important thing, as you can tell. Not the thing that's first and foremost on my mind, but it is very important that we continue to grow the community here. We try to, add to our reach, whether that's spreading the platforms that we're on, getting more people to watch the live stream, getting more people to watch the shorts that we put out from the live streams. I'm going to try to get better at doing like not long form clips, but the 7 to 10 minute clips of some of these segments that we do in the show. I've been trying to do a lot more of the shorts, but again, it's tough to do all of this at the same time by yourself without any outside help and stuff like that. But trying to get there. Appreciate you guys and your support. Make sure you guys stay loud, stay proud, stay aggressive, stay informed, but most importantly, stay in the fight, please. If you're getting out of your seats and into the streets because you're pissed off, as we're just not pissed off enough in this country, make sure you're keeping your head on a swivel. Make sure you're staying out. Make sure you're staying safe out there. You never know who's out there or what they're trying to do. So make sure you're either with friends, family, people that you can trust. Make sure you have your exit strategy planned out. But yeah, we need to make sure that we're getting louder, getting prouder, and getting more aggressive at telling everybody who they should be voting for. And obviously that's a blue wave come midterm election. So blue, no matter who, back in effect. Much appreciated. To you guys and the mods and everybody supporting this channel. The mods obviously got a huge salute from me. I've been very blessed with some fantastic mods and just the best community on social media. So thank you guys for everything that you guys do. And I will be back. What's today? Tuesday. Doubleheader tomorrow. Doubleheader. 2 shows. See you at 1 p.m. on the East Coast, and I'll see you at 8:30 on the East Coast tomorrow night. So thank you guys again. Hit that like button on the way out. 3 ways in which you can drastically help this channel. Very much so help this channel. And it's only 3 free clicks. You can like, you can subscribe, and you can hit that notification bell, and that'll let you guys know when I go live, when I put out shorts, and all of the other things that we post. But that tells the YouTube gods that you're engaged, that you like what you're watching, and that you think it should be shared out to other people in this community. So it does a great deal. I know you may not think so, but 3 free clicks does a great deal, as I keep saying. So, all right, I'm out of here. I'll leave you guys until a doubleheader tomorrow, so you guys can relax and recuperate and recover. But I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, guys. Hit that like button on the way out.
Вітаю, Бостон Брайан. Мій позивний танцор. Я представник 72-ї бригади. Дякую тобі і твоїм підписникам за цей донат, за цю чудову машину, яка буде нас возити усіх на позиції, захищати Україну і наближати перемогу. Разом усі до перемоги. Дякую.
They said, is that a Trump statement or is that real? To officially name the...
Вітаю, Бостон Брайан. Мій позивний танцор. Я представник 72-ї бригади. Дякую тобі і твоїм підписникам за цей донат, за цю чудову машину, яка буде нас возити усіх на позиції, захищати Україну і наближати перемогу. Разом усі до перемоги. Дякую.
It feels so lovely to be here tonight. What a beautiful out. Give yourselves a round of applause. You're so lovely. Everyone's so lovely.
I'm standing up here bashing the living shit out of Nazis.
Like we always do about this time.
He says rectum damn near killed him. Obama. 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 Yesterday's a hard word for me. You'll have a group of Venezuelan killers, street gangs, occupying the town with MK-47s. I know that gun very well.
Go fuck yourself.
Call them dumps, big massive dumps.
I'm just dandy. I got a bowl of chocolate pudding in my underpants.
Brian, you're drunk. You're drunk.
I can just tell you that a con artist is about to take over the Republican Party and the conservative movement, and we have to put a stop to it.
Eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats, they're
Вітаю,
eating...
Бостон Брайан. Мій позивний танцор. Я представник 72-ї бригади. Дякую тобі і твоїм підписникам за цей донат, за цю чудову машину, яка буде нас возити усіх на позиції, захищати Україну і наближати перемогу. Разом усі до перемоги. Дякую.
Is there anything worse than white people? White people are a mortal danger to you and your loved ones.
I didn't say mud, I said crud. You fall into some crud or something?
The big, fat, sloppy United States.